Does racism even exist? Or is it all just propaganda? Everything's fucked.
3, 2, 1.
All right, Chris, we are back. This is some exciting stuff, brother.
Hell yeah, buddy.
So, as you know, I'm your host, Piss, and this is your other host, Chris.
How you doing, everybody?
I hope you are all doing well. This is what? Now, what are we... Is this episode 3 or episode 4 now?
This is technically episode 104, I guess. Is
104.
right now.
Okay. Well, this is pretty exciting.
It's episode 4.
We may have bitten off more than we can chew in this episode. We're going to find out. Today's topic is racism. And
Is
the
it
room
even okay
goes quiet.
Is it even okay to discuss something like that? I mean, neither of us are people of different races. We're the same race, and we happen to be the one that pretty well shouldn't be talking about this subject at all. What do you think, P?
You're right. We shouldn't be talking about it, but that's not stopping other people from talking about it. Today we're going to be discussing a couple main people, which the first person is going to be Candace Owens, who's been doing a great job for about the last year. She just kind of came into the public focus, so we want to go over a public speech she just gave recently here that really shook some waters. And then the second person is going to be, of all people, Kanye West.
Yeah. Never thought we'd be talking about him on the show, but wow, all of a sudden this last few weeks here, the guy's been talking sense, and he's been brutalized in the media for having that opinion.
Now, Chris, what do we mean when we're saying, does racism still exist?
This is a large thing to unpack here. We have to be very delicate in how we discuss this matter. You know what, before we get into anything even further, I just want to welcome everybody back to the NASA Fraudcast Channel. If you get a chance and you like the show, please hit the subscribe button underneath the show here and give us a like if you like the video. And if you don't like something about the video, send us a comment. Let us know what you think. Anyways.
Also, if you want to hit that subscribe button, we'd really appreciate it. If you want to get every notification from the NASA Fraudcast Channel, go ahead and click the bell right next to the subscribe button, and that'll keep you filled in on every new video that we post on this channel here.
It's really rad. It'll give you both EF episodes, and then it'll give it'll show you if we come out with a new NASA Fraudcast episode as well. So, or Space Erase rather. So,
yeah,
it's everything that's happening on the NASA Fraudcast Network. And yeah, so if you want to be in tune with what's going on right at the moment it happens, you hit that little bell and you'll send an email right to your email account here anytime we launch something. So very handy. All right, let's get back into it.
Can I take a stab at it real quick? Do you mind?
Yeah,
I'm gonna try it. We're gonna kind of redo. We're going to kind of flex certain arguments around even in this discussion here, because this is a really complex issue. You can't just say like, oh, this is how things are. No, you're in a really clouded political climate right now. But what I'm saying when I say racism doesn't exist is I think that generally most people in this country get along. Are there racists of white, black, Hispanic, Asian? Yeah, of course, there's going to be racists in every single group. Does that make up the majority of people? I could be wrong, or maybe I'm just naive, but I just feel like the average interaction I have with people of other different ethnicities, I don't feel like there's any sort of racial tension. And I would strongly recommend that you kind of look at the last couple times you've talked to different people. I mean, maybe, you know, maybe you're a black person talking to a white person, or an Asian person talking to, you know, a black person or a Hispanic person. But ask yourself, was there a lot of racial tension? Maybe in certain parts of the country, but I just feel like, you know, we're in the state of Arizona. We're right next to the border. During Bush's campaign, of course, there was a lot of prejudice or discrimination against Hispanic people. But even then, I don't feel like that, you know, once again, maybe there's small groups of people that still adhere to that, but I don't feel like the general or average American has any sort of ill will towards anybody else just exclusively based on the color of their skin. So what did when I said, like, does racism still exist? I guess what I really mean by that is, when do you hear about racism? And I feel like you only hear about racism when there's some sort of political event happening. You know, if there's some sort of election happening. And who's bringing that up? Is it the Republicans bringing that up?
That's a great point, actually. This is something that kills me about every single election we've had in the last, well, since I've been aware of what's going on politically. Yeah. Every single election, you see Actually, you know what? Both parties. And in this show, always, we're going to crap on both parties here because P and I think for ourselves, and we take things on topic by topic. That's what this whole show's about, is like, hey, let's look at this one thing and make sure we're all... Are you responding angrily because you've been trained to respond that way, or is that really the way you actually think? So we're always reevaluating how we think here. The thing with these elections, though, to get back on point, is that God, it's like the Democratic Party is all... Or the Democrat Party, there's nothing democratic about those people. The Democrat Party, every time there's an election, they have this need to be like, oh, we have this many blacks and this many Latinos and this many whatever, and it's like,
well,
dude,
and Trump did that too, but you're right. I mean,
that is a byproduct of the whole political thing. Why can't you just say we've got 180,000 people supporting us? What the hell does it matter what their race is? And it's like the people that are yelling the most about being racially sensitive and stuff are the ones that are like, yep, so the blacks over here and whatever. It's like, Jesus,
I was going to say,
man,
that's my same issue with like.
It feels kind of antiquated to break people into groups like that,
especially after the election. Just the last presidential election was over, where Trump won, which I still think was the best outcome to that specific election. But even after that, you look at CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, all these different mainstream news organizations, and they all said the same thing. They're like, well, if more blacks came out and voted for for Hillary, or if more Hispanics or it's like, wow, way to just completely bifurcate or trifurcate the entire country based on exclusively race. You didn't say like, hey, I wish more people from Denver voted for Hillary Clinton. No, it was like, oh, more blacks should have voted. It's like, that is the most like ridiculous thing I've ever seen. And Nate, tell me, how many people in your average life do you hear talking like that? Besides news,
I have to, we moved from Minnesota, which is largely a liberal state, and that up there,
extremely liberal.
I mean, maybe if you're way out in the sticks, obviously there's like, there's that old way. I mean, there's the way your grandpa talks about people like, but really, as far as like Matt and I, our generation, or even my father's generation, like they had already pretty well gotten that out of the system or whatever. I mean, we might hear a goofy racist joke from very seldomly up there. I'm just trying to think of any example of like something in Minnesota. But even then, like that racist joke, you could take, the Hispanic guy out and put a Polish guy in there. You could put, it's like really, it's not like, none of that stuff comes from a place of hate. Now, where I will make the comment is, and we moved to Arizona, and again, like here, you'd think we're in a red state. Hey, let's see the hate come out or whatever. Still really haven't heard anybody. They still largely sound like liberal, progressive values down here.
But not only that, I mean, and that's why I'm saying that that's, I'm making the blanket shock statement of racism doesn't exist. But I mean, like if you're in Arizona, for example, you're probably at some point or another going to hear the line like, you came into our country, y'all better speak English, It's like that. So yeah, okay. So there is that, but my argument largely says, is the majority doing that, or is it like a very specific minority doing that?
Well, and I think in preparation for this episode, I wanted to make sure that we were covering this in a sensitive way, because in the nature of this show, we're pretty brash with or how we talk about things, and part of that is the name of the show even is like us exercising the last bastion of the First Amendment right we have or whatever. So like, what I will say about like the state to state thing. And as far as the sensitivity thing is, we're talking about here, like, so when I went to Arkansas and Tennessee to work in the Deep South,
Arkansas, go for it.
That is what really surprised me, because as a kid growing up, I had heard a few racist jokes or whatever, and like that's again, I'm trying to think of the only time where racism was really like a thing, and it would be like in a joke form, and even then, the guy telling the jokes looking both ways to make sure he's not actually offending anybody. It's more like, here, look how fun it is to get away with this thing we're not supposed to say, but you're not insulting a human being or like demeaning them based on their race or anything. Like, it's something just in a small group of people, or I don't know, whatever. Anyway, so that still isn't great. I mean, and the joke thing again, like unless it's like celebrating the differences in a positive way, it's probably not the best thing to be doing. Now, when I went to Arkansas and Tennessee, sorry for the extremely drawn out point here.
No, go for it.
Wow, I really encountered... I mean, I was working on farms. I was working on tomato farms, and I was the manager of a tomato farm. So everything that came from the farm and got on the truck, that was my job to make sure everything was what they said it was, and how much it was, and da-da-da. So I get down there and I'm working with these farmers, and like, I think at some point... Well, I mean, largely their workforce is migrant labor, and it's... a lot of undocumented folks, Hispanic guys, like just roll up in a bus in the middle, and there's a specific harvest season down there where like the townspeople just know that this is what's happening. Nobody really questions it, and it's good for the economy down there because, you know, lower cost labor, it doesn't hurt any business. So, I mean, and that's a part of a whole different thing. We'll do an immigration episode because I think the conservatives are just as guilty as the liberals with the immigration thing. The conservatives just aren't talking about it because it's benefiting their companies and their farms and all this stuff. But anyways, when I get down on the farm and I'm talking to these farmers, it was a huge culture shock here in my own country to hear these guys literally talk about Hispanic people and African American people like they're farm equipment, and why this guy is better at picking this and why that guy is better. I mean, they literally, and this is a quote, this is not me saying, I mean, this is not my opinion or whatever, but the farmer probably should leave his name out of this.
Say easy.
Yeah, okay, whatever. Anyways, he goes, yeah, you know, that Hispanic guy picking tomatoes, he's good at that because, you know, their skin color allows them to be out in the sun, and they're shorter people, you know, so they're closer to the ground. It makes it easier to pick up, you know, you and I pick up stuff and it would hurt our back all day. I'm like, dude, that's... And then he's talking about African-American people like, oh, we don't use them for this, but they're good to use over here. And I'm like, it sounds like you're talking about like goats and cows and shit. Just like you're reducing a human being to like a animal on the farm. It's pretty fucked up. And the hate in their voice when they would if they did tell a joke or any of that kind of stuff. It's not like the cutesy little one or whatever. It's like that really piercing, hateful. I mean, that's like the first time I encountered hate coming from another white person. That like blew me. That was a culture shock for me.
Well, the thing that like blew my mind was how it was kind of like built in. They were very nonchalant how they used.
The next guy next to him didn't even get phased or anything.
Yeah, it's like that guy down the road there. Yeah.
Wow.
The experience I had.
I was in the minority in that conversation. Just like, really?
Can I make another point too?
Go ahead.
What famous two political figures came from Arkansas?
Oh, yeah, the Clintons.
Yeah, right?
And if you talk to the locals there, there's such a hushed lore about how fucked up those people were and how much they took advantage of the system down there, but that's a whole nother point.
I still can't get over it. I told this story a couple days ago to a few friends, but it's my first and only time in Arkansas, and I bet you I probably won't go back.
I'm not looking forward to going back.
Zero desire to go back to Arkansas. Only went because I was forced to. But I was going to a gas station to go and pick up a pack of cigarettes. And I walk in, there's a full line of people there. There's one guy behind the register, and he immediately just kind of gives me come on up, you know? So I'm thinking like, oh, maybe the guy in the front's, you know, working on a coupon or something like that, you know? So I go up there, buy my pack of smokes, and as I turn around, I realize the entire line of people are black people. And the only reason that guy waved me up is because I was the only white guy in the gas station. That made me feel about that tall.
No kidding. Like, that guy's probably trying to give you, like, some kind of courtesy, but it's like, dude, I'm so not going to fucking, like, be a part of that at all. And
yeah. But
wow.
That's why I want to keep going back to, like, is the majority of people, or we can even use the term white people, are the majority of white people racist? I mean, I guess I don't believe that. I don't believe in my heart of hearts that the majority
just thinking about our daily interactions with other white people. Granted, I mean, like, I think anybody from any race is going to most likely be encountering on a daily basis. The most people they'll be seeing during their day are probably people of the similar race. But however, I mean, that is a big issue with African American culture because, you know, a lot of times when an African American gentleman's in a room, corporate setting, or whatever, he's outnumbered, and I can understand that feeling of being like, you know, hey, it's me against them kind of thing. And especially if there's a vibe of racism coming from that group or company or whatever, you're going to feel pretty alone. Even at a church, you know, if you're the only white person or black person at church. I'll say with my own anecdote, I pulled into a gas station in Memphis, which it was a pretty sketchy part of town. It was just not a good place. Doesn't matter what color you are. You probably don't want to be there at the time of night I was. I walk into a gas station, and I didn't realize at the time, I learned way later, but down there in the South, there are like black gas stations or convenience stores, and there are white ones. Like, if you're a white guy, you don't belong in there, and you feel like you don't belong in there when you walk in. And I realized the history of that later on is, you know, after the slaves were freed, it wasn't like, all right, guys, go out and enjoy everything. You know, it's like, no. They had like little special booklets, kind of newsletter kind of things where it was like, hey, this is where you can go get your hair cut. This is the place, you know, if you're on a road trip, you can stop here and eat because it's safe to eat here, or you can do your banking here or whatever. You can, and there was like these specific places. Well, I guess the evolution of that continues till this day. I mean, like that, the reason that gentleman or those people in that gas station felt like a little bit hesitant to having me in there is because it's like, hey, asshole, your people are the reason we're in here segregated in our own gas station in the first place. You know, it's like, so I understand that there was a reason for everybody in there to be a little bit upset by me walking in. However, I'm just a traveler going through town. I had I just needed gas, and I didn't know what was going
business.
on.
Yep.
They still served me, they still got my, allowed me to buy gas and my convenience items or whatever. So it wasn't, they were very polite, but there was a standoff, and I realized, that was one of the first times where I really realized that there is a divide in this country, because I guess we grew up pretty sheltered. I mean, and we grew up sheltered in the sense where it's like, that wasn't a part of our lives, so I just don't even think about it. It's like, and plus I'm a musician. I mean, half the people I work with are African-American people, so it's like, I guess I'm going to probably say black people, because I feel like that's probably more proper nomenclature. I don't know. I feel like, well, do we want to get into that?
I was going to say,
it's like, what I want to say is, you're just as much of an American as I am. So why are we like calling each other?
That's my thing too.
You're a black American.
Yeah,
you were born here, and this country is your country just as much as anybody else's. You're an American.
Yeah.
And I think that my whole thing with groups, and I've mentioned it in other episodes, it's a power play. And the reason why we do not want to be segregated is because there are very powerful elite interests out there with pretty much all the money in their side of the pond.
Do they want us paying attention to them, Chris?
Yeah. Do you want all the focus on those rich guys, or what if we keep creating infighting?
I was going to say, what's the best mechanism? What's the best mechanism
or female like feminist rights and things like that? I mean, like those, and that segregates me into a group, you into a group, that person into a group. And how are we ever going to work together when we're all in these? And now it's like with identity politics, it's like now you can't like have an honest conversation, which was really nice about that Candace Owens. Sorry. Candace. The other one, I think she's from like HGTV or whatever. I'm fucking up her name. Sorry, but anyways, Candace Owens. The reason why what she's talking about right now is so important is because it was the first time where I saw a white person and a black person having just a calm debate, and when things aren't like, oh, you can't say that, or whoa, shots fired, you can't, you're racist,
no race cards pulled or anything.
Well, when people talk like that, and when they stop each other from saying things like that, you only get this far deep into the conversation. Now, nobody was saying that from either side, and that what was the name of the gentleman that has the podcast she was on?
Oh, the Rubin Report.
Rubin Report.
Dave Rubin. Yeah.
They just the presentation I saw there was great because they got so deep and they could talk about why this was racist or why this upset people. And really, as like the average white guy, I mean, just learning just recently here, the actual history with like why you don't want to, as an African American person, why you wouldn't want to be associated with watermelon and fried chicken. A great episode on this program, David Chang's new show, Ugly Delicious is the name of the program. And they go and they say, okay, well, this is the history of like, the abused history of the wonton or like the fried chicken or like whatever. And I think the value in there was it was a Korean American asking an African American, why is this so sensitive? And what feelings does this bring up when somebody associates you with fried chicken or some food or whatever? And it turns out that the history there is pretty deep. I mean, in the beginning of time, or in the beginning of the United States, African American women would be making fried chicken for their slave owners, essentially. I mean, and I hate to boil down years of history into a real quick thing here, but of course time is limited. But pretty soon then they became associated with the fried chicken, and then it was like they branded these different chicken companies and things like that with really heavily racial like it's not just a picture of a black person, it's like the big everything exaggerated. Yeah, it's exactly like what the Germans did to the Jews in the 1930s. They portrayed Jewish people with these big long nose and fangs, and these people are awful.
They're coming for your money.
If you owe this Jewish banker money, fuck him. You don't need to do it. And of course, like people, in hard economic times there, they just bought right into it. Here, it's like, and we do not want to make this episode just about black versus white. Chinese Americans came to the United States, and the first thing that the people here did, because they perceived it as, hey, these people are willing to work for less money, they're taking our jobs, railway, the different systems of like local government, building roads and all that kind of stuff. So they started saying, oh, well, these people eat rats, and their culture is awful. I mean, they created like all these negative stereotypes
to distance the two groups of people. Yeah,
you as a person who at the time didn't have access to television or anything like that, and you come across an Asian person as an American way back in the day, that might have been your first interaction with an Asian person. So if everything you had heard all the way up until that point is these people are bad and they eat dogs and all this shit, it's gonna taint your reaction with that person, and it's going to color both sides of that interaction negatively.
I want to dig into that taboo though. Like the thing I keep going back to is we are probably about the whitest people ever. But every interaction I have with anybody else, there's never a problem. But as soon as you bring up race, then it's like these force fields get put up, and it's like, here's what you're allowed and here's what you're not allowed to say.
And people can't even articulate like why that's bad. It's just you just know, oh, can't talk about this. And that seems kind of fucked up.
And I feel like that's a massive disservice to progress. It's like the majority of everybody's trying to just get along. We all this whole like privilege thing and all that kind of stuff, as far as I can say, as from our economic standing right now, is that everybody's basically getting the same hand, or the same what do you call it, like
hand dealt
to them kind of thing. Yeah,
if you think we're sitting here on a pile of money, you are sorely mistaken. Like
yeah, so to me it's like why
I haven't felt that privilege yet. As soon as that happens, I'll let you know.
Yeah, why are we fighting together? That's the thing that I just can't figure out. Why are we fighting together? Yeah, there was huge issues in the 60s and prior and stuff like that, but ever since then, I mean, if you look at like public education, if you look at like public television, if you look at everything else, we've been pushing these racial relations for like 40 plus years basically. And I feel like things, can things be better? Absolutely. Things can always be better. But I feel like we're to the point now where we shouldn't be sitting here and just battling racism every 4 to 8 years anytime there's a major election out. But who's pushing this?
Exactly.
That's the thing that you need to ask.
Who does this fight serve?
Who is pushing this? And yes, the Republicans kind of pushed it in the last election, but predominantly the Democrats have always pushed for this acumen of racism every 4 to 8 years because it serves their public interest. And the thing that people like Candace Owens, even Kanye West just brought it up.
Yep.
But what are the Democrats actually really doing for black Americans?
Yeah, they say quite a bit, but what is the actual result? Is your life improving, or do you feel like you're more like a slave to the money that they're giving you, or whatever kind of benefits? And a lot of those benefits that they talk about when they're running for president, they just don't manifest. It's a lie.
Yeah,
it's like, but they just keep they want to tie minority groups to the Democratic Party or Democrat Party because I feel like that's the only way they could win an election. So they're just lying. And what do you get? I mean, honestly, we had Obama for 8 years,
and I don't want to dismiss. The positive that the left has done for minority groups. Obviously, the left is a champion for bringing up these minority groups. The problem
I have
are
actually well-meaning on the left, but they're not the ones that are creating and controlling agendas that
correct.
are going
that's like
nationwide.
your
both parties have great people in them.
Your traditionalist liberal basically is a great person because they say like, hey, we just want to see everybody equal and that kind of thing. I don't think anybody has a problem with like the classic liberal.
I do not disagree with that.
What I have an issue with is when we're trying to monopolize off of minority groups. And that's when you start hearing like, well, the Hispanics or the blacks or what, it's like that's where I have a huge issue because it's like we can just say like, hey, Americans, or like I said, like why are we talking about it in racial groups and why are we not talking about it in like states and cities and things like that? It's like,
or how about, like,
more people from Michigan,
45-year-old men or 20-year-old women like this. It doesn't matter if it's 20-year-old white or anybody, I don't know. That's seems the main antiquated, and it also seems like the same people that are yelling the loudest about getting rid of, not racial pronouns, but like adjectives. Just like racial speech in general, like and trying to turn it into hate speech, which now is going to become like an actionable offense. Like there definitely will be a point in time where even misconstrued hate speech is going to land you in prison or give you a big fine. It's already happening in Canada.
Right now, I mean, if you say anything that is not to the public narrative, the narrative is the thing that I want to demonize the most in this episode because you've watched like tons of people just in the last year and a half lose their jobs, get kicked out of the Senate, all this stuff for just like these random infractions and stuff like that. A while ago, I can't remember the specific guy's name, but he worked for, I think it was like IGN or something like that. There was like, I can't remember, it was like National Women's Day, and he's like, oh, great, a day without women, and it was just like, oh, get them fired and throw, it's like for just a lame joke.
See, that's another thing, is like when like these Twitter battles start, they start from like, oh, I disagree with that, and the next person's like, I think that guy's an asshole, and the next person's like, I think we should fucking kill him, and they're like, the next person's like, you know what, we should get his job, but get him fired or whatever, and like, and what I'm seeing there is
a mob mentality.
It's mob mentality, but I feel like it's astroturfing, which is something we should do an entire episode on, but
absolutely,
basically, essentially, to mansplain astroturfing to you guys.
Can you mansplain that to me real quick?
Yeah, especially that's your actually voice is mansplaining or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, fuck all that. Anyways, it's just to explain it as a human being, regardless of my gender or color. Astroturfing is a dirty, dirty tactic being used online, and what it accomplished. Well, let's see. The name comes from. AstroTurf is the fake grass that they put out on the football field or whatever, and it's made to resemble real grass, or in this case, real grassroots movements. So yeah, a lot of times somebody says, "Hey, this family got they lost their house. Let's raise some money for them." And a real grass movement starts. Hey, I like that, and this person likes that, and we all give them some money. That's a real organic grassroots movement. Now, astroturfing is the dirty thing, and that's what's being used during elections. And I really feel like it's certainly like Candace Owens has a fantastic. Her story about what happened to her on YouTube and just on social media, everything. I mean, she came out with her real opinion, and it was like a woman contacted her from, I believe, a university or something like that, and said, "Hey, we're really working on race relations. We feel like what you're saying is hurting what we're doing." And so back and forth.
I thought she was working for the policies department for Twitter or something like that.
I can't remember. We can pull up that.
Yeah, we'll have to fact check that
basically, the simple parts of the story, the mechanics of the story, is this woman from outside reached out to her and said, like in a kind voice, like, "Hey, we're trying to help people, and I feel like maybe what you're saying is gonna damage, and people might misconstrue what you're saying." And Candace said, I don't see any problem with what I'm saying. I'm going to continue saying it. And then
it was an anti-bullying campaign,
and
too.
It was an anti-bullying campaign. And so the next message that comes to her is like, "Hey, I would be careful saying that because a lot of people might get offended or whatever." And it was almost like
because you could ruin everything. She kind of,
and then they were talking hours after that message was received by Candace. Now there's like 500 at the exact same time trolls just fucking going nuts on her.
And they're all named like
racial
white Nazi
epithets,
and
Trump
KKK
supporter 2017
105,
or whatever, and or 16 or and the names seem a little bit suspicious to her, and then smart girl, because it's talking as a person who's been on YouTube and been attacked. Wow, is that not a fun place to be? That's a scary feeling, especially when I don't know, when people are all up on your phone and on your computer. I mean, you can't, every time you turn on a device, you're getting just reamed by somebody, like that's scary. And then I haven't had it at 500 in like 1 hour or whatever. So basically what's happening there is like, this woman said, be careful or whatever. And then all of a sudden, like 500 people all at the exact same time chimed in and trolled this woman at the exact same time. It almost seems like it was planned or contrived, and that's bringing me back to astroturfing. So astroturfing is where, again, you make it appear that a bunch of people are upset or concerned about a cause,
coming in,
and they're all just different people, and they all feel the same way or whatever. But really, what's happening, and it's very simple to do nowadays, and it's a dirty marketing tactic that companies use or whatever, but like 2-3 guys will be in a room, and they're managing like 70 accounts, and yeah, you can do some damage and make it look like 70 people just hated something that you just said. Or in the case of like what I feel like David Hogg's, a lot of his Twitter posts, to bring it back to our 2 episodes ago, all of a sudden this kid's like just nationally trending with everything that he writes on Twitter, and it's like, man, do you think that's him being that popular, or do you think that maybe this movement, especially now, it's like, hey, it's a news story, and then all of a sudden it's everybody, it seems like every news cycle, the whole country gets up in arms about the next thing. It's almost like the news tells us what to be concerned about, and then everybody, whatever. So is it really people reacting, or is it really like a contrived thing? Because that the owners of Twitter and Facebook, all these companies, they've said outright that they're definitely left-leaning.
Can I bring up a point too?
Since you have the control over the numbers and likes and shares and stuff on somebody's post, and you can artificially inflate those, or if you can create a bunch of fake profiles and artificially inflate those numbers. You're talking about like creating your manufacturing consent in this country, which is like a Noam Chomsky book documentary.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in here real quick though. But
it's how they force us to feel a certain way on something. Yeah, that's fucked up.
You brought up David Hogg, and here's another thing I would like to say directly to Black Americans watching this video. When you're watching people like David Hogg, I don't know if you were as infuriated as I am, but like for some reason, and there's that liberal video that's on YouTube as well, but David Hogg's like, well, in these poor, impoverished, black neighborhoods, and it's like, how are we not just absolutely, where is the frothing left on that? It's like we've all of a sudden like, so if you're black, you're somehow dumb, or you don't have a father or this or that. I mean, it's just like everything you hear about a black American is just like the worst stuff in this entire country, and it's all coming from the left. How many people from the right
same party that's trying to help is always like slowly also putting this vibe in that like, yeah, well, we have to help them because they're just so poor and so so dumb they just can't rise up through the ranks like everybody else. So it's like, I wouldn't want anybody talking about me like that, especially like look at the voter ID thing. We mentioned it on another episode, but there's like a bunch of videos of these little privileged white girls, college age girls.
That's what I was just referencing.
Just saying well, I mean, we can't have voting IDs because like, just black people are like they're just too dumb and poor and they just like can't like figure out how to get an ID and stuff. Then the guy walks down the street and just asks like any black lady, any black guy walking out, hey, do you have an ID? They're like, yeah, of course I do.
Of course I do.
It's like, so then that's the Dems definitely making it sound like, oh, well, we have to help these people because they're just so, they just couldn't help themselves.
Yeah,
so
they can't figure it out.
It's like, fuck that, man. If I was in a black man's shoes in that situation, I'd be like, dude, do not talk about me like that. Like, I can do whatever the fuck I want.
That's my other problem is people talking on behalf of their groups. It's like, how can anybody talk how can we even talk on behalf of white people?
Yeah, I certainly don't feel comfortable.
We'd probably be the worst representatives to talk about all of white people.
We don't even agree with our own like parties and stuff. Like, we can't pick a party to line up with. So we're not in accord with white people anyways. This show is like a big, like, wake the fuck up, America. It's not you versus me. It's not black versus white or Asian Americans versus African or, Caucasians. It's like, it's us versus them. And until we realize that mentality, dude, they're just going to keep fucking playing us.
Exactly. It's the Americans, so all of us fighting the elitists or fighting whatever political cause is trying to bring all of us down. If they make a law, it's not just for one group of people, it's for everybody. Yeah, they're going to blanket under one specific group or something like that. The Nazis did this, so we're going to create this legislation, or this happened, or this, So we don't want that. If you let any group or anybody start pushing an agenda, it's going to affect everybody. So it's in our best interest to all work together and make sure that this stuff is not continuing.
Not only that, but the way this government works is like, if you want to override what the president or what the power structure in Washington, D.C. is trying to do with social reform and things like that, we need everybody. I mean, the only way you make a message loud enough for Washington, D.C. to hear is when all of us stand in line and go, no, we're not fucking doing this anymore. We are adults now, and quit treating us like children. And again, like the lowering of the grade level of like newspapers and news and all that stuff, it's like dumbing us down. It's treating us more like kids. And the more we think like children, the more it's like, yeah, I don't like you because they look different than me and all this shit. It's like, fuck that. Let's learn about each other. And that's the other thing. Is like just us talking, I'm sure we've pissed a million people off.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah.
But the issue is, if we were talking to like an uppity leftist that was just wanting to make a problem, like you see these girls or guys or whatever at protests or whatever, and it doesn't matter race or skin color or anything, because it's just that kind of person that's like up in everybody's face. They would have stopped us from having this conversation at minute number 1 here in this program.
It's supposed to go on the mic, by the way.
It's supposed to go on the headphones.
All right, perfect.
It dislodges, or it makes it impossible for us to have a conversation. Why does this offend you? And if I know why it offends you, I'm not going to do it anymore. But if it's just always a mystery, again, like the media has served us well to a point. And that's why like liberalism is great when a country has fully formed. Now it's like, okay, well, let's reform how we all treat each other here, because we grew pretty fast and some bad shit happened. So let's make sure that we take care of the people that were building this country in the first place. The issue is like we are not able to.
I would say it even goes further past the media. I'm going to just say the left, because the media is so controlled by the left.
Well, that's the thing. Now it is. But like the media was great for saturation. Like, you and I have talked about that before. But basically, like, if you are a white guy in Minnesota and you've never met a black guy before, when you're watching television and you see black people on there and you see them, again, represented positively, because holy shit, the worst stereotypes come from Hollywood, which is like the most leftist fucking place in the world.
Like BET,
it's like if you're a black actor, all of a sudden, like, the only roles you're getting are these like really stereotypical black roles and stuff like that. Dave Chappelle talked about it and stuff like that. It's like, man, I don't want to be doing that. And plus, when I do that, I'm just proliferating this fucking idea that black people are stupid and lazy or all smoke pot or whatever. I mean, pot's great, but hey, that's something we all agree on.
The problem I have with the left or the leftist media is the fact that, like, yes, the left, they, just like I was saying before, they are some of the champions of civil rights, women's rights, that kind of thing. Very important achievements in American history. I think we'd all agree on that. But they were fighting to get rights. Now the left is fighting to take away rights,
Which is
and they're
fascism.
cannibalizing their own people.
Which is great to see.
Chris is a gay, well, not like a conservative, but I don't know, like a moderate or libertarian kind of person.
Basically makes me a total freaking outlier.
Yeah,
I don't
and
even.
so look at people like Milo Yiannopoulos, stuff like that. It's like that guy.
Like he and I are both stepping outside the umbrella of protection of like
if
LGBT.
Neither of you guys had stated your political opinion, the left would embrace you with both arms, you know? But as soon as you come out and say, like, yeah, my agenda actually doesn't perfectly coincide with the leftist agenda, then it's like they want to crucify you guys, you know?
It's like it's not even like some big powerhouse. It's like they've got us policing each other. Like, whoa, man, you can't think like that. We all think like this, you know? Like,
Well,
you don't
and-
want to be
and
all
look
by
at-
yourself.
look at-
and I feel like that's how the different races and groups
Yeah.
of people in this country, like, they police themselves. Even white people talk to each other in a certain way that's like, you know, oh, well, you really can't say that, dude. Whoa, you know, whatever. It's like nobody's. That's really crafty mind control, and it's set in so well that they don't. There's no police out there telling us what to say and whatnot. It's your friend, it's your mom, it's your coworker.
Well,
that's like telling you and putting you back in your place. Like, no, you can only think this. You can
Another
only say
country that we love to demonize perfected that, and they're called Russia, and it was called the KGB. And the KGB operated by, of course, they don't have enough, people in their staff to police all of Russia.
Yeah.
So they said, like, well, if we can just make people think that we're controlling everybody, you know, every idea. I mean, that's where like 1984 and books like that came from. It came from this idea of like, hey, if we can use propaganda to convince people that we're always watching them, then we can control them without even having to do anything, you know? It's kind of like if you work in a retail store and there's security cameras. The guy on the other end's probably not watching the security cameras all the time, but you probably think that anytime you move something or, oh, God, I accidentally pulled out an extra $5 out of the drawer or something, you feel like that guy's watching you all the time. And that's by no mistake. That is a consumer behavior. That is a retail behavior.
They're exploiting that psychological
yeah, that's been around
effect.
for years, yeah.
Which is just like, if you look up at the ceiling and you see a camera, you basically have to assume it's filming you. Like Russia, there's a rumor, and maybe that's propaganda as well. But and I know that whatever. Anyway, so the rumor there is that in every hotel room, any place you go, there's always one camera at least in there. And even
Gross.
let's say if there was one camera in there, which is totally fucked up privacy
So
wise,
you're gonna have to burn the ones that I've stayed in, yeah.
well, I don't know. I only stayed in Russia. I don't even think I stayed the night. It was like a change of flights or something like that. Anyways, there's no way that somebody's actually watching all those video feeds. So that's probably most likely like psychological propaganda. It's an effective tool, and it keeps us all in our place, and that pisses me off. We should be able to cross-communicate different genders, different races, different age groups. There's an age war going on right now, which is a whole topic of another episode. The idea of millennials, I'm going to say the most controversial thing on the fucking planet right now. I think millennial, that name, that term for people, I guess we're just young enough, I think, to fit into that, but I think we're probably the oldest edge. But I think the way that you're hearing the word millennial in the news and on television is always a marginalizing term, and I want to say that millennial is the 21st century N-word because it's used to put you in your place.
Yep.
And what the fuck is that about? I hate that. And it's like, and again, I'm sitting here trying to have conversations. We hang out near a retirement community, and our parents are there retired and all that stuff. And you want to sit there and have conversations with these people. They absolutely have got this idea now. It's like Fox News or some shit has pumped this idea of like, oh, millennials are just a bunch of stupid, lazy fuckheads or whatever. It's like,
I wonder what adjectives they used to describe another group of people with.
oh yeah, exactly. Well, and again, it's taking an entire group of people and making it a huge blanket statement about an entire group of people that you never see on a daily basis.
We mentioned that in a previous episode too. It's the thing, right? It's like, ooh, that was actually kind of dangerous. But it's like, hey, you believe 9/11's a conspiracy. You're a truther. You're prepping for an apocalypse. You're a prepper. You know, you're a tea partier. You're a whatever.
It's like, oh, you're searching for the truth about 9/11. You must be a truther. It's
you're
like,
a truther.
You're goddamn right I am. I like the
accept that
truth.
title,
What's wrong with the truth? Because we certainly know that that's not what we were given by the media. Just pounded in the ass for fucking like straight and like 4 or 5 years, dude, of just straight 9/11, 9/11, 9/11. Oh, and this about fucking Osama bin Laden, da, da, da. I mean, like, now it's like if you take some time to look back at that, you realize we were being misled. And if we were being misled there, where are we being misled now in real time? You turn on the news.
had made a brilliant point. You mentioned the word control. And I think
it's all about control.
When I look at the Democrats, for example, and once again how black Americans are described in this country, you never look at the people that are dominating their fields. You only look at the absolute bottom of that economic spectrum. So if you want to talk about control, the thing I would be the most disgusted with is like the welfare system and things like that, because those are like completely structured things to dominate and control a group of people. And this isn't just black people, of course. This is anybody who's accepting government assistance, you know. But that's a way for them to control you. And then just like the unions, if they can control where your money or where your securities come from, then they can also control how you vote. And that's how the Democrat Party is able to stay in control. The right's all about like empowering people and individualism and that kind of thing, and the left is all about collectivism and giving more power to the government and giving more government control. These are the things that we should be running away from. Why did we leave? Why did the Europeans, for example, leave the UK or England, for example? It's because of the government control. They came over here to do what? To create a free people. Look at the Constitution versus like anywhere else on the entire planet. It's completely foreign. I mean, if you look at like why people from Eastern countries, for example, have a pretty big issue with the U.S., it's because our laws are the exact polar opposite.
Right.
I mean, there's
women are allowed to go and be free in society and make their own decisions, do whatever they want, and a lot of other countries still to this day, women's rights have not even been approached yet. I mean, like they're not a lot of countries aren't even where we were in like the 40s, 50s, 60s here in this country. Man, I do have a couple of points that take us a slightly off point here.
Oh, feel
but
for it,
history
yeah.
is very important here, and I think so we're a while ago. Around the Charlottesville incident and all that kind of stuff, we're tearing down statues. We're tearing down things that remind us of racism or that are historical reminders of racism. You know, is that a good idea? I mean, granted, what that guy did in that statue or whatever was fucking horrific, and that's why they wanted to tear it down. I understand that. But however, like, history is very important. If you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. And I think that racism, of course, we can all agree, was fucked up. Owning people and slave ownership and things like that, treating somebody lesser than you just because of the way they look different or whatever is absolutely fucked up.
Well, even after that,
it doesn't even make sense now.
The discrimination and segregation was terrible too, where it's like, oh, you have a whites-only sink and a colored sink and all that kind of stuff.
Well, a lot of that stuff was still post-civil rights because the South.
That's what I'm saying.
Here's the deal. So the South, a lot of Democrats in the South. Okay, and the history here, which was what I was trying to get to. When the Civil Rights Bill was trying to be passed in Congress, I believe at the time, it was halted because there was only 2 votes for it to pass, and the 2 votes were from fucking Republicans.
Yeah,
the Democrats were the ones putting the stalemate in there and just
Lincoln,
not letting it pass.
Republican. John Wilkes Booth, Democrat.
Yep. Yeah. So Lincoln was the guy that freed the slaves. I mean, that's a Republican. And then the Republican Party. He was the first Republican to become president.
But see, Chris, there's that argument where it's like, hey, now the right's the left and the left's the right.
Absolute bullshit.
And hey, look,
same.
Wasn't LBJ the champion of black people, and he was most definitely a Democrat?
LBJ was the worst thing that ever happened to this country. As soon as Kennedy died, we were fucked. And you saw like a very strong agenda change. It was like the country just took a huge left turn right when Kennedy died. And you can see almost a smile on LBJ's face when he was sworn in. Side episode again. We're getting off topic. But anyways, so right there, the Democrats largely opposed, and they held the Civil Rights Bill way back for the longest time until it was Republicans that were able to convince enough people to bring it to a majority and get it to pass. So again, Republicans got you the Civil Rights Bill. Republicans freed the slaves. There's like this really fucked up narrative in this country that Democrats did all that stuff. Guess what? When the Democrats lost that civil rights movement, a lot of those guys down there, former slave owners, or that's a part of their history down there. And again, it's a whole different subject or whatever, but the white people down there say, well, this is a part of my history. I need to, but I don't know. That's probably not something we need to glorify.
Who started the Ku Klux Klan?
Well, that's it. The Ku Klux Klan came as a result after the Civil Rights Bill was passed. Now, or even after
it was passed by Democrats.
I think it was it was either after the Emancipation or Proclamation, or it was after the Civil Rights Bill. But anyways, after whatever that was, that the Democrats
before the Civil Rights Bill.
So there you go. It was after the Emancipation. So after slaves were freed. That basically took the power out of those Democrats' hands, and they said, you know what, fuck that. What we could do is throw in some white sheets and fucking goofy hats and ride by horseback and just harass black people at night. Literally to the point where they want to leave the country or they fucking killed them. I mean, it was like terrible. And again, it was because they didn't win. They wanted to keep slave ownership legal. They wanted to continue their way of life, and because they lost that, what did they do? Just like the Democrats today, did they say, okay, well, Donald Trump is president now, I guess we can deal with that. Well, we'll get him next time in 4 years. Let's get our support drummed up. No, they've been disrespectful. They've been at odds with the president. I'm not even that big of a fan of Donald Trump. I like him probably more than her in that case or whatever. Yeah. But every single day you got Stephen Colbert, you got Jimmy fucking Kimmel, you got Jimmy Fallon makes a little joke. I think he's probably the least bad out of the bunch because he doesn't seem like emotionally invested in hating Donald Trump. It's like, you can disagree with it. I disagreed with a lot of Obama's politics. Did I hate the guy? Fuck no. What does hate have to do with anything? And furthermore, as far as like proving that race relations are moving in the right direction in this country, we had a black president for 2 terms. It wasn't like an accident and he got voted out. It was like, no, we got him in there. And we liked it. We kept him in there, as the majority of the country was speaking there.
Just because every pen in the studio not work, by the way.
It's because I write so much that I blow through every pen I've got.
What was the? Hold on. What was the doctor's name in the last election?
Dr. Ben
Carson. Yeah, but I mean, look at the last election, for example. You had Ben Carson. You had Herman Cain. Herman Cain is like a former business partner and a personal friend of our mom, for example.
Yeah, I think didn't he invent Little Caesars or something like that? I believe.
Was it? I thought he was involved with like Pillsbury or something like that. I could be wrong.
It was a food company, whatever it was.
Yeah, but so
check that in the back.
Yeah, so as far as like opportunities and stuff like that in the country, what was your last point there? I had to jump in right there, but I'm going to just intersect and bring up my own point here because I was trying to get one in there earlier. But the Democrats, I think their most brilliant thing, Kevin Spacey from the movie Unusual Suspects said the most brilliant line ever. And he's like, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was making people believe that he never existed. Right? I'm paraphrasing, so I probably butchered that.
Pretty close.
But, the Democrats are the exact same way. They were the ones the entire time causing this problem, and then all of a sudden they somehow they flipped. And I want to say it was right around LBJ. I could be wrong, but I want to say that that's probably one of the flipping points where all of a sudden they became the savior of African Americans, and then they proceeded to do everything in their power to create legislation that just destroyed the family structure. I want to say
that's Bill Clinton right there that signed that crime bill that pretty much put like 1 out of every 3 adult African American men into prison, which was probably the most devastating thing that happened to that population in our country.
We're going to be doing an episode fairly soon here, might be the next one, about masculinity. And yes, there's good and bad about it, but when we're talking about, just these astronomical statistics about the average African American child being born without a father parental figure in the household and stuff like that, it's like that's a huge issue. And if you look at like just just studies about like how parental relationships affect children as they're growing up, I mean, you need both parents to do that. And when we destroy the nuclear family, which once again we can sit here and say like, oh well, the nuclear family is against women's rights and that kind of thing. The point I'm trying to make here is like a 2-parent household where the 2 parents are engaged in raising the children. That is the most important thing when you're raising a family. And if you don't have that, you're going to have a lot of issues. And so these bills that the Democrats are passing, or that rather have passed in just the past there, that's created this huge bifurcation that's just completely destroyed the economic. Oh, nice. We got our visitor in the studio here, but it's destroyed the ability for Black Americans to generally advance in that culture. So you have these people, and they're born, live in these lower income housing units, Section 8, things like that, and they just feel like, you know what? I'm never getting out. I was born here. I'm going to die here, And that is I would be enraged. I am enraged that it's like, why are we not rising up against that,
Well, I mean, I just watched David Letterman sit down on his new program, and he was talking with Jay-Z. Jay-Z came from very much like Section 8 kind of style housing project, and the way he described it, man, it was terrifying. I mean, his dad spent most of his time with a gun in his hand trying to kill this guy that killed his brother, and so like right there, your dad's like, and it's more like self-protection or whatever. I mean, Jay-Z was selling drugs to make money, and his mom was doing the best she absolutely could, but just couldn't make the put the food on the table kind of deal. And she knew what he was doing, but she kind of just let it happen because it was like, hey, this is what's keeping our family afloat. And he was making like $2,000 a day or some shit. Like, I mean, he was pretty successful at dealing drugs.
So it's like $2,000 a day?
Every day you're out there doing that. I mean, it's like he was basically describing it like, dude, you're counting the days before you're dead. I mean, there's just, it's so bad, and it's so rough and so dangerous. It's not a place. I mean, you're not spending your time thinking about what your next business move is. You're thinking about, like, how am I going to eat and how am I going to fucking not die? You know, he's like, I got good at, like, sitting down in a club and, like, looking. He'd be like, I see this guy coming in. He's got something in his pocket. We got to get the fuck out of here. And then 10 minutes later, the whole place gets shot up. I mean, it's like that's a mental awareness that the average person doesn't have. And I think there you are talking about privilege, where, but it's not just white privilege. I think a majority of people in this country don't have to fear death when they're walking out on the street. They don't have to fear where they're getting their next meal, and it doesn't override their ability to do anything else in the world. You know, like that is a bit of a privilege. So I mean, and that's why I'm trying to be sensitive to that, because you know, the African American, like, opposition with racism right now does have some very valid points.
Absolutely,
and they're from good historical. I mean, factual historical things that happen.
Such as 400 years of slavery, yeah.
Well, yeah, so, I mean, you can't just say, you know, okay, let's not have racism anymore, guys. Like, well, I guess our statement at the beginning, again, is a little bit more, like, shock.
Tongue-in-cheek, yeah.
But I think right now, and with what Candace Owens is saying, I almost dropped the Wilson again. So what Candace Owens
you're thinking of Owen Wilson or something.
Yeah, I think, yeah, now it's like,
I mean, it's just great. I mean, we just love, everybody in this country. Wow. You know?
Yeah, yours is better than mine. But anyways, what she's saying now is, yes, that happened. And it would be stupid to marginalize that history. It did happen. But what are we going to do now? And that's what Kanye said as well on that TMZ footage. We can bring that up. Well, first, actually, I just have a quote here. This is from a Democrat president. 1963 to 1969, Lyndon Johnson was president, and he was quoted as saying, I'll have them, we'll say African
voting Democrat for 200 years, yeah.
I mean, it was like he's gloating. Like, watch, I'm going to fucking manipulate this group of people, and the people that we're putting down the hardest, we're going to make work for us the hardest, kind of thing. Like, they're going to be attached to us by the hip for 200 years. And it's like, guess what? That's been realized in real life here for the last, 60s plus, 70, 80 years now. More like 50, 60 years, I guess. But so that's that. Now let's go back to the Candace deal. I mean, now she's saying, what are we going to do next? Kanye is saying the same thing. What are we going to do next? I can bring up that TMZ footage. I really think we need to watch some of that.
Absolutely. Here. But we don't have to stick in that old mantra anymore.
It's not about forgetting everything happened, but it's like, let's move on and be respectful that happened. So yeah, in that regard, yeah, I am going to watch what I say. I'm going to watch, what foods you associate with people or what words or names or anything like that. I mean, there is a reason why people are sensitive to that, so let's be sensitive to that too. But let's not let that override free speech, and let's not, and if a guy is talking racist, Matt and I can see a white guy talking racist, we think that guy's an asshole. He's an ignorant, stupid son of a bitch. Why, we're not going to sit here and like hang out with him or anything like that.
There's no message we can put out here besides that, where it's like, if you hear a guy that's a racist, like, don't pay attention to it. Don't listen to it. That guy is on an island by himself now, And that should be like the biggest pedestal we stand on, is the greatest achievement, one of the greatest achievements we've done in this country. That it's like, hey, look, we've like completely destroyed the main narrative being a racist narrative, and that's the thing that I mean, once again, is there a lot we can do to improve this? Absolutely, but we should be very happy with where we are now.
Yeah,
and just continue to work on it.
Candace said, yeah, like if you're a kid our age or a little younger, now you're growing up in a world where race largely, and this is from her experience, not mine, she's saying race largely isn't playing a role in whether or not you can get hired or go to a good school or anything. And we looked at college graduation rates and things like that, and it looks like, yeah, it's pretty well balanced racially, that everybody is getting a pretty good opportunity to get higher education, and they're completing said higher education.
I could be wrong, but I want to say it was like the state of Michigan was trying to overturn affirmative action because, the different racial groups are actually graduating at about the same rate. And that's the other thing I want to mention, too, is I do not want
a blanket statement to say that that's happening across the country, but we
correct, but in that one specific area,
I do want to make that correction.
That was a state issue. That wasn't a national issue. But I do want to point out, and this is not to punch down at the the misfortunes of the lower economic spectrum in certain black communities and other communities, but the thing that I really don't like is that's the only thing that's talked about. We don't talk about how successful African Americans are becoming in this country. We don't talk about any of that.
Which
and
is
I think
bullshit.
And
in
not
order
only
to
that,
flip that narrative, you need to show that people are.
well, not only that,
are
but the
doing
left has this incredible mechanism where anytime an African American that becomes successful, unless they're like Beyonce or Jay-Z or something like that, but anytime somebody anytime a black person becomes successful in this country, we have to like demonize that person.
Not only that, but like the people supporting race relation movements are going like, come on, man, you left us in the dust. Like screw that guy. He
or they're
totally
calling
he doesn't
him
give a
Uncle
shit about
Tom or
he doesn't
something
give a
like
shit
that,
about
yeah.
black people's rights or how our struggle or anything like that. He's totally rich as fuck now. Like, and that's what now they flipped on Kanye hard. I mean, he used to be like the champion for the longest time, and even the guy on TMZ that was attacking him hardest said, "Man, like for the last 5 years or whatever,
I've been the guy standing up.
You've been my hero. You inspired me so
you,
much to do so much and show that we can go in places and do things that we never thought we could." And then he goes right back to the victim mentality of like, "But this is why we got to feel this way." And it's like, okay, so I understand. My family has history. That's great, but and you want to know and understand that, and it's important. History is so important. If you know your history, you are less likely to repeat it, or you can see it coming from a long way away.
Learn from it.
If trends are coming back again. So we don't want to forget about the history. We don't want to marginalize that, but if we stay victims, and this is more Candace what she was saying. You're not going to have the victor kind of personality if you're always painting yourself as a victim. And I don't think other black people are doing themselves a favor when they're painting everything as victimization. That just makes everything sound like, hey man, you could try, but it's just not going to work out.
Yeah, what are you going to do about it?
That's like disenchanting to a whole group, especially like a whole generation of black kids growing up. If you tell them like, hey, you can try, I mean, you might get great at math or something in school or whatever, that's great, but you're going to get out to the real world and they're
just pipe down those expectations.
They're going to see your color and they're not going to give you that opportunity. It's because, all white people are racist or whatever. And if all black people are saying to their kids, all white people are racist, and all white people are raising their white kids saying, well, all black people are racist or whatever, how the fuck is anything going to change? And literally, and again, it's like the two-party system. It's the fact that, you only have right-wing news on Fox and CNN is left-wing news, and it's always like total polar opposite stories on the same subject. We're stuck in this pinball back and forth. And guess what? We really haven't gone anywhere. And we're never going to go anywhere until people like wake up. Again, Candace, what she was saying, and this is something we've been saying, like Space Race is the champion of wake the fuck up. There's so much going on right now that we're being lied to about. Our government has run the fuck away from us. The power structure has completely monopolized like the larger end corporations and things like that, to the point where it's like, really, we are like our free will, our ability to choose for ourselves, those things are like slowly disappearing right out from under us, or we're just letting it happen because we're too busy infighting against each other because, this guy's different or this whatever. God.
Well, not only that, but the coolest thing, though, that will
never change until we fucking stop.
The coolest thing about
evaluate
the last election, though, was the transparency of it. I mean, forever, how many? I mean, we've only been alive for what, 3 or 4 different presidents? I want to say 4, I want to say 4 presidents.
Well, who was? It'd be Bush Senior.
Yeah. But every single one of those elections, and granted, obviously the earlier ones we were pretty young and we're like, yeah, let's go ahead and follow that, but the elections that we did follow, every time you see the during the primaries and things like that, you'll see the Democrats and the Republicans, they put up their best people. And every single one of them has that like canned
best people.
Well, yeah, whatever. But they put up their like their canned political
choices,
speech.
America.
Yeah, exactly. And for the longest time we were like, oh wow, that guy's he's a real American or whatever. I want to vote for him and stuff like that. But in the last election, the one thing I will credit Trump for is he completely destroyed the structure of how we do primaries in this country. And you look at guys like Marco Rubio and you look at Ted Cruz, and both of those guys, it's like. Like Ted Cruz especially, and there's certain things that I do agree with Ted Cruz on, but I mean, you just look at the overall picture of that guy. He is just a absolute snake of a human being, and it's just like, if we didn't have a Donald Trump, Cruz to me looked like the best guy on the panel. I was like, hey, look at there,
No,
but he's like, we're just gonna do these things for this country, and we're, it's just like his political diction just drives me nuts, because I'm like, listen, when you sound like that to a guy like me, it makes me think like you are the complete opposite of whatever you're saying. You know, I can almost imagine like that guy closes the door and he's like, oh yeah, you know, screw the military and all that stuff, you know, but at least we got their vote. All right, back to Michigan or whatever. You know, like it drives me nuts. So the coolest thing that's happening in this country is we're destroying certain parts of that narrative. And now it's opening the way for people like Candace, people like Kanye, people for like Milo, even like Ben Shapiro. It's like I can't even imagine. Like that guy is Jewish, Ben Shapiro, and we haven't had an issue at all with Jews in this country. And then as soon as that guy came out as just like a, you know, the left will call him a frothing conservative or whatever. But as soon as that guy came out, he has had more anti-Semitic tweets and just social media posts and comments and things like that than any other person in the world. By like
you can just measure it by his ability to. It's like a liberal speaker comes in, just walks right in the auditorium, talks to everybody. This guy, there's protests outside, and he's got to hire security and a whole fleet of cops drive him up in a whatever you call that motorcade or whatever. And I mean, it's unbelievable how much resistance the Republican guy gets versus the liberal. I mean, so it just shows that, like, if you're not in that stream of, like, this is what we all want to believe from now on or whatever, and, no, I mean, it gets into the left-right thing, where we've always had the problem where it's like the right doesn't, they're too vocal about the wrong shit, and the left is always saying the thing that you want to do. Of course we want women to have rights. Of course we want racial relations to improve. But it, like, the effect is never what they're saying. And it's like, it's always like you could set your watch by the fact that these guys are always going to do the exact opposite of whatever they're saying. And if you really want racial race relations to improve, man, I don't think it's coming from the left. I don't think. Then I think it's like. I mean, again, they're subtly promoting that victim mentality. The Hollywood's always continually pushing this, like, you know, putting black people in specific roles. So it's like, hey, America, we want you to see how this person or how this Asian American or how Native American. We never even got into that. I mean, that's another topic that is closer to our hearts and our lives, is because you know, that's your special lady is Native American, and when he's been with his girlfriend now for all this time, and I'm not going to speak for you or whatever, but I will say from the outside looking in, it's like, wow, I didn't realize how fucked their situation is, and nobody talks about that. Like, that's an absolutely silent class of people, because you know, they're just like, hey, here's your money, now you got to just shut up and stay out of the way, kind of thing. It's like,
and you want to talk about like discrimination and stuff,
man. Like, fuck.
That pipeline, I forget the specific name of the pipeline, but that was during the end of the election. And it got almost zero coverage, but I'll try and find the name here. If anybody knows, if you can post it in the comments, we'd really appreciate it. Real quick, but if you want to talk about like 60s, you know, police tactics and stuff like that, they were shooting these guys with fire hoses. They had attack dogs going after them, all this stuff, after natives protecting land from a pipeline going through it. And it's like, this was 2017. 2017, not 1960, 2017. I mean, that's terrifying that stuff's still going on. So you know, once again, that statement I made at the beginning, that's more like in jest. And I want to say, you know, I would love to just do an entire program where it's like, hey, everything's fine and we're all good and we should all just move on with it and stuff like that. Obviously, that's not the case. But what is important is that there's a turning point that's happening here. People are saying, like, listen, it's not working anymore. We got to make a change. So when you were saying, like, oh, you know, the left's doing a disservice, that kind of thing, so go to the right kind of thing, I'm not 100% fully convinced that the right is going to fix this situation. But what I do think that's important is that minorities are finally saying, like, listen, I'm going to give the other party a shot. And you know what? If nothing else, that's going to wake the Democrat Party up and say, like, hey, listen, if we're going to actually, like, play that card, like, oh, we're up for the minorities and all that kind of stuff, we're actually going to have to act on it. We're actually going to have to do, we're going to actually have to enact policies that are going to fix these situations instead of perpetuating these situations. So in the next 4 to 8 years, we can just call back on it and see, hey, these areas, these schools are doing bad. We got to, you know, vote Democrat so we can get in there and fix that issue for you. You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, right now we have this
it's North American Pipeline. There you go.
The North, well, I think it had another name too, but I can't find that.
Yeah, I want to say there was something else there too, but I
whatever.
Can't remember. Yeah.
But anyways, it's it goes from Canada, I believe, down to Mexico. Is they playing there, or maybe they've already gotten there. Okay, so right now we have a Republican president. He happens to be like pretty vocal, so it's like all of a sudden Republicans are kind of coming out of the shadows, like, I'm going to dip my toe. Hey, I didn't get hurt. You know, it's like I think I might actually have the ability to speak my opinion for once or whatever. I mean, it was like straight 8 years of like, if you disagree with the president, you're a racist. And I got to tell you, as a white guy, that that's very frustrating. And you're not going to maybe have a problem for me, but when you marginalize this huge group of Southern white people and say, guess what, your opinion doesn't matter anymore, and fuck you for saying it, and you can't say anything else, or you're a racist, you're going to like create those kind of people, and that's the scary situation. And again, that's why freedom of speech is important. It's almost like a pressure valve on a pressure cooker or something like that, or pressure release valve or whatever. It's like, if you allow people to speak their mind, they're less likely to get all bundled up or, get so much pressure built up in them that they're going to explode and hurt people or do something, racially charged or whatever. That's fucked up. I mean, everybody should have a voice. Now, I'm not saying that racist mentality is good. I'm just saying that's how those kind of people react. Like, you say, shut the fuck up and, whatever, and those guys are like, that's your gun-toting Americans. I got my big truck. What the hell do you mean? I'm free. I can do whatever the frick I want. And all of a sudden, that's that guy that's like out there going, Trump, like that's creating that kind of person. So again, telling people what they can and cannot say is not going to solve the problem. That's fascism. And again, I was with you with like the left, in liberal-minded kind of things, helping a country when they're adding rights, when they're helping people become more equal. That's great. But when you start doing that at the cost of other people's rights, and when you start infringing on like the very basic rights of this country, like freedom of speech, that's the first one on the fucking Bill of Rights. I mean, obviously, that was a pretty important one right there. And,
First Amendment,
First Amendment. So, controlling speech, again, that's control. That's not coming from you. That's not coming from me. That's coming from them. Like, let's not let these people run us like a bunch of fucking puppets down here and keep us fighting forever. Again, if that's the message I can drive home on this special, I guess, yes, we both realize that we're not the guys to have this conversation. But this program, we really wanted to tackle that subject because, first of all, you need to know how we feel about it. Race doesn't even come into play. Are you a good guy? Are you a bad guy? That's all I care about. Doesn't really matter. I mean, I know a lot of fucking white people that I don't want to have anything to fucking do with. So race really has nothing to do with it. It's not like we are in this camp of like, oh, well, all these people are great and all those people are bad. That's that antiquated mentality. And the second we started learning about the real conspiracies of this country, we realized like, it ain't us versus them. It's us versus them. It's like, this is... I'm going to keep driving that shit home until I make people sick of it because we are never going to move forward. If progress is what you really desire, you're never going to move forward by fighting amongst ourselves. We need to learn about each other, why things are hot button issues and things like that. And knowledge always kills ignorance. Ignorance is the biggest problem in this country.
Can we take a look?
Ignorance will always proliferate racism. Oh yeah.
Can we take a look at Candace's? I believe it's one of the.
Yes.
Here. It's a pretty quick one, and
we do need to recommend because I don't think we're gonna have time for it. But this one that we brought the Lyndon Johnson quote from was from a video called "Inconvenient Truth About the Democratic Party." It's a PragerU video. Again, PragerU is getting assaulted on YouTube. I would say check out their videos while you still can, kind of thing. I can fully say that me and P do not agree with every single video, so it's not like we're just towing the Republican Party line. However, correct. I will say more often than not, they make a very good point, and it's at least good food for thought. So, Inconvenient Truth About the Democratic Party.
And once again,
so I'm going to get rid of that video right now.
Prager's going to have a slant to it, so don't 100% believe everything you
have
hear.
A conservative
exactly. So that's the important thing. Is it's like you have to take everything with a grain of salt. Look into those concepts, get familiar with them, but then do your own research around them.
Congressmen in the country were Republicans, like that Republicans brought the first black or African American congressman into the United States government, or the highest positions of political power. The first time those positions were filled by African American people was on the Republican side. It was like 60 years later that the Democrats brought their first black person into their side of politics or whatever. So like, if you really start looking at the history here, it's very jaded, and the Democrats have not been doing. I mean, this is becoming more like we didn't really want this to be just black versus white or whatever, but it's probably the most prominent racial thing.
That's the main racial tension in the country that the left loves to idolize.
My thing is, it's Democrat versus Republican. It's us versus the extreme wealthy elites. And again, it's not just people that did well in their business or whatever. Those people are not the issue. It's the people that it's like where it's like 13 or 15, like. It's certainly under 50 families have like 90% of the money.
Top 1% of the 1% of the 1%.
We're talking like, 0.0001% here. That's the issue. And when we say 1%, that's again infighting against the wrong people. The 1% actually is a lot of, it's 350 million people in the country.
Oh, God.
1% is a lot of, but when you're talking like fucking under 50 people have all the money, and then we get like 99% of the income in the United States, especially. And then like the whole rest of the 350 million of us have to fight over the 1% scraps. That's the 1% that we should be fucking pissed about. It's
Absolutely.
not.
Well, yeah, and that's
the people that did well in this country and succeeded.
It's so important to make a clear distinction there, because you had, what is it, 125,000 or something like that? Something like, I forget the threshold for the 1%, but it's somewhere in there. But you're talking about like every single company. You're talking about.
I was thinking you'd have to have at least over an M to be in that 1%. I don't think you're.
No, I think it's over like 100 and something thousand a year or something like that.
Well, there's like the 250,000 was where they made the gap in the taxes. Now Trump's new tax.
Man,
law
I could be wrong. If you guys can comment that below, we'd really appreciate that too. But obviously the point is that there's a lot of people and companies that make over that threshold, and those are not the people we want to demonize. You want to demonize the very top part of that group, you know, because like people like Bernie Sanders and stuff, they'll talk about demonizing the entire 1%. It's like, listen, that's like, you know, the company you work for right now.
Yep,
that's a 1% company, you know. So be extremely careful who you're demonizing, because you don't want to raise taxes on those guys, because then they're just going to pass those taxes down to the end consumer, you know.
Yeah, and guess what? Like, we're not going to be that group of guys. We're not going to be two guys here sitting shitting on every single corporation. Like, corporations are evil. Like, the vast majority of corporations are on the level. They're doing their thing. If they are taking advantage of tax loopholes, they're doing it just like everybody else. But like, when you have like one company that controls like an entire market, you've got like these monster companies like Walmart and things like that that are sprouting up. Amazon, guys like not even paying taxes or anything. Like, so your biggest company probably in the country right now, or certainly fastest growing, and like they're not even participating in our economy and our tax system.
Yeah.
Or I mean, they're not participating.
It's like when you're not paying a penny in tax, and it's like, yes, of course, the people that are buying from you, they're paying a sales tax. The people that you're employing are paying their state, federal, Medicaid, Social Security taxes, that kind of stuff. But the actual like owner itself and the actual corporation itself is not paying, you know, taxes into state and federal and stuff. That's the main issue. It's like, listen, when you have an engine that's that powerful and they're not putting anything in, that just only hurts the middle class, period.
Obviously, we have.
Guess who's paying that bill? It's you and me. It's not them. And those are the guys that probably have the money. I mean, again, now they're like parking all their. I mean, they've been doing this forever, but they park all their money offshore. Anyways, let's get back to the topic here, because we are woefully out of time here.
Here is Candace Owens, and
where would you like me to? Is there a specific
just go from the top here?
Okay, yeah, she makes some fantastic. Oh yeah, it's a minute long.
Yeah, it's a very quick one.
Let's take a listen, guys.
We'll go through here.
Oh, by the way, this is a video off of. I got to make sure we're crediting the channel here. This is Prince Nassim channel, and Candace Owens smacks down Black Lives Matter at UCLA. I'm not going to marginalize Black Lives Matter as far as like a sentiment, but that group of people, again, are they helping or hurting? I'll let you guys decide. Here we go. Candace, here we go.
What you're seeing happening today, obviously we have some black people that are just shouting in the back. We have some black people that are sitting in the front quietly, that are chanting USA and having a normal conversation. I love that, because what I say every single time, and you may have seen me on the news, is that what is happening right now in the black community, you're going to hear it in this room first. There's an ideological civil war happening. Black people that are focused on their past and shouting about slavery, and black people that are focused on their futures, okay? That's really what it comes down to, okay? I can guarantee you what you're seeing happening is victim mentality versus victor mentality. And I promise you, the people here are going to win.
I love that.
And there's no doubt in my mind. I can tell you right now who is going to be better off when we look 20 years and we look at the faces in this room. Who is going to be better off are the girls that are sitting right here and across this room, because they don't have your mentality. Victim mentality is not cool. I don't know why people like being oppressed. It's the weirdest thing I've ever heard. I love oppression. We're oppressed. 400 years of slavery, Jim Crow, which, by the way, none of you guys lived through. Your grandparents did. And it's embarrassing that you utilize their history. You utilize their history, and you come in here with more emotion than they ever had when they were living through it. More emotion than they ever had when they were living through it. It's embarrassing. You're not living through anything right now. You're overly privileged Americans.
All right, so that was Candace Owens.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. There's like most of that I agree with. Obviously, as a white person, I can't identify with everything that's in there. But the only thing that I would say that I disagree with is that, just like what Chris was saying earlier, you can't forget about your history. But yeah, she definitely is very adamant about speaking her opinion of that culture and what's going on right now.
And I think the only way for African American people to come to a consensus on that, or change their mind, or whatever, as far as the victim mentality that she's speaking of there, it's got to be an African American conversation. It can't be guys like us talking about it. No, it has to be. And then right now you have a girl who's just getting this girl. This is not or this woman here, I don't want to be disrespectful, but she's not having an easy time walking around saying all this stuff. She is getting just brutally assaulted every day. And it seems like if it's happening to a conservative, it's just fine to hurl racial epithets or do any of that kind of stuff. But if it's happening to a liberal, holy God, stop the presses, fire anybody who said anything, put their picture online, have people harass them at their home, even if they're falsely accused, Like, it's really upsetting. But and it's also upsetting that she's getting so much resistance to just having the alternative point of view. It's fully her right as an American to think that way, and if that benefits the people in her world, I would say have the conversation. What is the harm of just hearing out the other side? I would say as conservatives, we're sitting here every single day forced to change. Okay, well, I won't say that anymore because liberals told me I can't say that. I mean, like, every day we're changing and bending to their whim. Like, what the fuck? Can't you just have a conversation?
But on a grand scale, too, it's like if you look at white people, for example, I'll talk on behalf of white people.
Yeah,
right?
that's what we're trying to avoid here.
I know, but if you look at like white people, for example, they're going to be fairly well split, not necessarily 50-50, but probably to some close split like that for Republican and Democrat. And then you look at African Americans, and they seem to be, in the probably 80-90 percentile Democrat voters. So this other thing that I can't really figure out is why is it that everybody who's black has to vote Democrat?
That's what she's asking. It's a specific question. And you couldn't believe how much resistance she gets for just asking a question like that. And she's like, shoot, I grew up my whole life. Democrat was like pretty much the only option I ever thought of. Shoot, and then I started looking at the other side and starting to agree with a lot of the stuff they're saying. And like the personal responsibility, the ability to pick yourself back up by the bootstraps and things like that. And the fact that now, today, that oppression does not exist. And again, we're not marginalizing the history there. It's just that she's saying, hey, maybe it's time that we do start kicking ass and taking names here. What the hell's wrong with that?
Correct. And the other thing, though, and I mentioned it before, but like I'm a little scared. I don't want people to be framing the Republican Party as the savior for Black Americans. That's scary to me because it's like, listen, there are pluses and minuses to both sides. Like I was the exact opposite. When I grew up, when I was a kid, I was born and raised in a Republican household. And I thought, yay, Republicans, until I learned about things like abortion. And then I was like, absolutely not. I could not more vehemently disagree with the Republican stance on abortion. The one thing that I will say, and we're going to actually do an entire topic on this, but the one thing I will say is it's like I do agree with the left that it should be illegal. And I do agree with the right that we shouldn't, as the government, be paying for those abortions. But
Did you say legal or illegal? It sounded like you said illegal. Like the left is saying abortion should be illegal. But
no, I'm saying that
I just wanted to make sure we said that correctly.
Sorry, my headphones kind of had an echo. But what I'm saying is that the Democrats think that abortion should be legal, right? And the Republicans should think that they shouldn't be paying for it. So I definitely agree on the side where it's like abortion should be 100% legal, and the government shouldn't subsidize it at all. So I don't know what camp that puts me into once again. So that's where Chris and I talk about this all the time. You can't just follow a party line. I love people like Ben Shapiro, for example. I listen to a lot of his material, but the only thing that I really disagree with is that he constantly follows the party line. One of the
all he does. I mean, yeah, he's got a lot of great points, but I hate guys that just lean on the hey, I'm a conservative, and they play me on Fox News, so I'm just gonna toe that party line. Fuck that. Grow some nuts. I mean, again, like that's another reason why it's like popularity. It's a lot of like it's subtle things, and we never even got to institutional racism, which I think is absolutely a real phenomena. And
this episode's gonna run long, but I mean, there's just so much material to cover here.
I guess what we've been talking about most of the time is just like our personal experience, which again, that's not. I know that's not like God's law or anything like that, but what I will say is that what we're noticing as white people talking to other white people every day, certainly. Race is not an everyday issue. It's not something that's like it's been so long since I've heard somebody say something like truly negative about another group of people just based on the color of their skin. So I just know that that's not a real phenomenon. It's not I shouldn't say real. It's just not as bad as it's probably the best relations we've ever had. And granted, they're far from fixed. So I'm not going to say everything's great, but it is probably time to maybe turn a new leaf and check out your options, kind of thing. You don't have to vote Democrat. And but I highly recommend the most important documentary is a documentary that came out during the election called Hillary's America, and I guarantee you not not one liberal African-American person went and saw that movie. And it's probably one of the most important movies. It's not made by a white guy.
I
It's
actually
made
haven't
by
seen that, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, that was fucking fantastic. I highly recommend it. That shows, like Lyndon Johnson, or I can't remember which was. It was one of the first, it was a liberal, or it was a Democrat president, and he played the first movie in the White House, and it was something a nation.
The
it was basically
Aryan, the Ku Klux Klan
it's like
movie.
Building a Nation, I think was the name. But yeah, it was a Ku Klux Klan movie. It was the first. It was a racist movie.
The Rise of a Nation, I think. Or something.
Yeah,
something like that.
It's white national bullshit, whatever. That was that's a Democrat president openly celebrating racism in the White House as president of the United States.
Wasn't that like the absolute first movie?
It was the first movie played in the White House.
No, that's what I meant. Like the first movie played in the White House. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first
that's terrifying.
First moving images in there are images of a people being absolutely oppressed, and that's definitely, you can say that then. And so again, you can't marginalize or just say that never happened. It did happen, and who are the guys celebrating it? Is it the modern day conservative? I don't think so. I think that guy, in my mind, as a libertarian or a conservative, my whole goal is just to be left the fuck alone. If you're doing your thing over there, that's fine, as long as it doesn't interfere with the way I'm trying to do my thing or whatever, or like doesn't tell me what I can and cannot say and things like that. I think every American should be entitled to that. Do you want a world where the government's pushing you around, telling you what to do, making all your decisions for you, raising your kids in public school, or do you want to make those decisions? Do you want to control how your family grows up and what values you would like to pass on to your children? Or do you want just like the media, leftist, mainstream media kind of thing, basically training your kids how to think? And man, I don't know. It's not helping us. Let's listen to Kanye real quick. He's got some great points here. This is him at TMZ. He's basically all by himself fighting that whole fucking group of people that just want to be like, nope, we're oppressed. Just it's horrible that you would even bring this up. How dare you think differently? It's like, man, that's kind of sad that it's sad that this is such a charged. I guess we watched this before, and that's probably why our voices are heightened or whatever. But like, it's sad that this had to be a charged conversation. Kanye goes over and gives the guy he's arguing with, he goes over and gives him a hug. He says, sorry, man, I really feel bad for offending you, but I think this is an important thing to say, and I think people need to hear it.
Yeah, and for fair use sake, this is actually from TMZ's actual YouTube page. There are
Kanye West's rant in TMZ office, extended cut TMZ.
There's like two main videos. There's the extended cut, and then there's like the really quick one where they have like a really heavy spin on it.
I'm sure
to make Kanye look terrible.
Crazy.
But when you look at, that's why we pulled up the extended cut. I don't think we have enough time to go through the whole video.
It's like me right now. I mean, he's got great points, but I think he's a little bit worked up, and it's hard. Sometimes those things don't come out right. And one of the things he mentioned is opioids. It's like, and that is a huge problem in this country that's not being talked about, is the opioid epidemic. And they touched on it during the elections just as much as it served them, but then it's just gone. No help nothing's changed. The access to the medicine to get people off of heroin and things like that is not any easier to get. It's not any cheaper to get. He's mentioning that there. He goes, I went into the hospital taking 2 opioid pills a day, and then I come out of the hospital taking 7. It's like, maybe it didn't come across right, and I could see how they could take that clip and be like, yeah, this guy's just a pilled up fucking crazy nutcase.
Yeah, but and not only that, but it's like, they like admitted him to a mental, like a psych ward kind of thing for like a week and stuff like that. Yeah. And it's like right after he met with Trump.
Right.
So it's like, oh, if you're a black person and you met with Trump, then you must be insane.
Crazy.
Yeah. So we're gonna lock you up for a bit.
Let's get you some pills. Let's lock you up, and let's make sure you go back to thinking that you're the victim and everything is happening to you. Yeah. I don't know. Kanye stood up and he's saying what.
I want to roll this from the top. That's kind of the main meat and potatoes, and he's going to start having a back and forth dialogue with another person in the back of the room there, and I think that might be where we want to cut it out. Okay. Feel free to check out the extended clip. Yeah. I just want to get
We're
his
not gonna
actual.
Have time to watch all 12 minutes of this.
Yeah, I want to hear Kanye's actual views.
I'm gonna start up here. We're running out of time here.
Yep.
You got precisely the reaction you wanted by wearing that hat.
I didn't want a reaction.
You wanted a reaction.
No.
You knew there was going to be a reaction.
I knew there was going to be a reaction, but I'm just living my life day by day, doing what I feel and what the Spirit calls upon me to do.
but it also
But you realize
opens
that you
up this
influence
dialogue that you're not apologizing, because everybody else, when they make a statement like that, they end up
The
apologizing
left
because they're
wants
so
you
worried
to
about.
apologize.
Boom, right
Feel
there.
bad.
Hey, every time somebody else spoke out and spoke their mind, we forced them fucking twist their arm behind their back to apologize. Why aren't you apologizing for having your own fucking mind? That is like, this fucker on the left is like one of the most dangerous public opinion makers on the planet. I mean, so many different occasions I've seen this guy talking. I'm like, where in the fuck is this coming from? And then when he says that, people just believe it. They buy
He's
it
got to
up.
be so excited though that Kanye did this on TMZ, because you can imagine the press that he got from. Yeah,
for him to give Kanye, a famous public figure, a public spanking on his program, hey, look at how I'm straight up. It's like,
deviating from the
helping shit by
narrative.
doing this. And not only that, but they're not allowing the conversation to happen. But when they're starting it off in an accusatory, why are you doing this? It's like, dude, let the guy talk. So
Guy
anyways,
wore a
What people
hat.
say on social media.
Well, you know why?
wearing
You know
a
why
Trump
when I went
hat.
to visit him the first time, right
after the election.
Yeah, and I took the tweets
Yeah.
down and everything.
Yeah.
Because I was drugged the fuck out, bro. I was drugged out. I was on opioids. 2 days after I got off of opioids, and I was addicted to opioids, 2 days I got off of opioids, I'm in the hospital, right? I'm taking hey, everyone listen to this, please. 2 days before I was in the hospital, I was on opioids. I was addicted to opioids. I had plastic surgery because I was trying to look good for y'all. I got liposuction because I didn't want y'all to call me fat like y'all called Rob at the wedding and made him fly home before me and Kim got married. I didn't want y'all to call me fat, so I got liposuction, right? And they gave me opioids, right? And I started taking 2 of them and then driving to work on the opioids, right? Then
So to be clear, this isn't drug abuse. This is something he got after a surgery. And watch how they, like in the shorter version, watch how they spin that to make it look like, I'm on fucking drugs and I'm crazy. It's like, no. That's not what he was saying at all. That's why I want to make that.
and I'd always ask my boy, to hand me if it's, we on tour, give me some weed, blah, blah, blah. So he had to go give me the opioids. And there was talks amongst my camp, like, Ye's popping pills, right? So when he handed this to me, he said, this is used to kill genius, right? So I didn't take it. 2 days later, I'm in the hospital. I was taking 2 pills a day at that time. When I left the hospital, how many pills you think I was given? 7. I went from taking 2 pills to taking 7. So the reason why I dropped those tweets and everything, because I was drugged the fuck out, bro. And I'm not drugged out. These pills that they want me to take 3 of a day, I take 1 a week, maybe 2 a week. Y'all had me scared of myself, of my vision. So I took some pills so I wouldn't go to the hospital and prove everyone right.
Yep. Fucking go Kanye, man. He's on the money, man.
We
They're
are
using
drugged
pharmaceuticals
out.
to fucking get you
We
to
are
be
following
compliant again.
other
It's
people's
fucked up.
opinions. We are controlled by the media. And today it all changes. You got Tupac and Lennon in that hallway. Today it all changes. We need to think how to think free. We need to be free thinkers. Then we need to learn how to feel free. People say feel free, but we don't even know how to feel free or think free. Say what you feel, positive or negative. I just got off the phone with J. Cole. He said, how'd you feel when they said the Crips is gonna kill you? I said, man, that was the headline. But when they said they wanted to beat me up, I said, that's great. They're my brothers. They love me. They don't want nothing to happen to Ye. They just want to beat some sense into me. I love Daz. I love the Crips. I love the Bloods. I love everyone. How many people how many people felt something that I said today? Raise a hand if you felt something that I said today.
Shit, my hand's up in the air, dude.
Do you feel that I'm feeling, do you feel that I'm being free and I'm thinking free?
Fuck yeah.
You got Candace in the back and she's holding a hand up.
I actually don't think you're thinking anything. I think what you're doing right now is actually the
Now let's put Kanye back in his fucking place. Tell me this isn't the more racist shit. This seems like the Uncle Tom shit, doesn't it?
This is the self-policing that's driving me nuts. It's like, listen, this guy's like,
it's not
like
just
right or wrong, or
everybody.
Yeah,
doing
right
this
or wrong,
themselves.
or Kanye or anybody else. It's like if somebody has a different opinion, like we just automatically have to just smash it out.
Hey man, you're having a different opinion, and let me tell you why you're wrong. You know, and that's you want to hear some fucking mansplaining?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yep.
Absence of thought. And the reason why I feel like that, because Kanye, you're entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to believe whatever you want.
But let me tell you why it's
fact
wrong.
And real world, real life consequence behind everything that you just said. And while you are making music and being an artist and living the life that you've earned by being a genius, the rest of us in society have to deal with.
See, man, you're rich, which means you left us all behind. Fuck, Kanye is a public figure, and he's representing African-American people. He's saying, hey, dudes, let's fucking do this. And here's this guy going, yeah, but this is why we can't succeed. This is, again, it's like, you know, you could try. It's
like, go really back to sleep, Black America, you know, like, don't try and
guys won the lottery, you know,
Yeah.
and that's not the actual experience for everybody. It's like, but it could be. Kanye's saying, let's fucking wake up and see if we can change our situation.
Not only that, but Kanye's just saying, like, let's try. Let's try. And this guy immediately just turns around and just like, hey, listen.
Let me tell you why you're being offensive for
the guys
saying,
in the real world
let's
here,
think for ourselves here.
You know? The guys in the real world.
And this isn't us picking on a black guy. This is two black guys having a conversation, and I just so happen to agree with the guy making sense.
I was gonna say, I don't even agree with.
I'm trying to figure out ahead of time, like, how we're gonna get called racist for this entire episode.
Yeah.
Where we're trying to like fight for equality, but in like the commonsensical way of like, seriously, it's like you're being run like a puppet, or you're running the puppets. You know, like, let's not be the puppets. Let's not fucking fall right into the hand that we were dealt.
I think what you're seeing is like Kanye's the guy that's seen the other
right, red or blue.
But Kanye's seen the other side of the fence, and he's saying like, "Hey guys, we can all come over here," you know. But this guy immediately just is like, "Nope, we're shutting it down. Shut it down." You know.
Shut it down.
The other thing too is like I was hoping that this video had the original first part of Kanye's conversation that got cut out. The other gentleman's going to point out very briefly here that Kanye is trying to dismiss the 400 years of racism and saying that like black people had a choice to be slaves or not, and that I don't feel at all was Kanye's message. I feel like what he was trying to say is going forward, you have an opportunity to say, like, I can.
That distinction.
Yeah,
it's not. We're not forgetting the past.
Correct.
But let's figure out what we're going to do right now, going forward.
And that reaffirms Candace's opinion, where it's like you can either continue to be the victim, or you can be the victor. You know, and this is the pivotal point in a lot of people's history, but especially in Black history, where it's like you're not a slave anymore. There's no slavery.
This could
There's
be a
no
tipping
Jim
point.
Crow laws. There's no segregation. There's hardly any discrimination. You know, this is everybody's opportunity to pick themselves up and make something of themselves. And this other guy is just going to immediately just be like, nope.
This
go
is why
back
you
in the
shouldn't
box.
even try.
Yeah, go back in your corner.
Don't even try.
So it's sad to see like
But
you
this
know,
is
like
self-policing within
exactly.
this specific group of people, just like in every other group of people. They've kind of installed, and I'm using they is like the elites or whatever, whoever's pulling the strings. Because the more you study about conspiracies and what's going on in America right now, and in the last since basically since Kennedy died, that whole history between then and now, the more you know about that, the more you realize, like, dude, there's a group of somebodies out there. And it has nothing to do with race groups or anything. There's like a power structure that has a very defined agenda, and it's happening as fast as it can happen. And but you know, in the grand scheme of things, it happens very slowly, so we don't notice it. But it's happening, and I think Kanye is waking up to the fact it's like, shit's not the way that they're saying. He even said the media is fucking lying to us. And if you guys don't think that by now, I don't even know how you wound up at this show in the first place. Like, you know, this show is to give you the alternate opinion, which is like, hey, we ingested that information too, but here's the logical outcome we came up with, not the total polarized to the left or polarized to the right, to party line or to toe the party lines.
Well,
no, this is free thought. This is exactly
that's
what Kanye
exactly
was
it.
saying.
And a lot
this almost should be like the theme song for our freaking show going forward.
And a lot of times that's
I'm gonna ask him. I'm gonna send him a Kanye an email and ask if I can have the rights to use his speech here and like cut it into a track. I would love to do that. I absolutely would do a remix of this and make that theme song.
The similarities between us, Candace, and Kanye is that are any of the 3 or 4 parties here, are we 100% correct? Maybe, maybe not. But the point is, we're forcing a dialogue. It's like if nobody does this, if nobody does this, then we're never going to see an improvement here. But by taking the first step and by getting a little dirty, and I mean, I feel like probably
this is uncomfortable.
I was going to say, I'm sure you guys feel just as uncomfortable on the other side of the screen as we do on this side. But until we start talking about this, there's never going to be a fix for it. So, is the Republicans the right solution? I don't know. Is the Democrats the right solution? Well, I don't think so. I mean, based on their track record, I don't think they're
look
fixing
at
a lot.
where we've gotten with the Democrats.
They did something. They did a lot classically. They just haven't done a lot within the last 40, 50 years.
I think it's like the people, there's a lot of well-meaning people in the party. Again, when you talk about like, hey, we want everybody to feel equal. We want women to be equal. I mean, it's like we all agree with that stuff. And there are actual people that actually believe that and that are actually fighting for that. I don't have a problem with those people. I have a problem with the people that pose as those people and then use that when we're all hyped up about that specific agenda to like twist us in this other direction and make us think like, okay, but this is what we're actually trying to do. Like, I don't know, for example, we use women's rights all the time. The women's suffrage movement, women's rights, was not to give women rights. Yes, that was part of the outcome, but the other part of the outcome was that they were able to, now the elite power structure, again, what we're talking about, was able to tax the other 50% of America. Women actually outnumber men, so like this
single-handedly destroying
the
family.
We double our fucking money. Oh, let's, but we'll sell it to them like they are the ones that are winning, right? But it's like, no. What you did is you took the mother out of the household, which she never had to leave in the first place. If she didn't want to leave it, or if she did, that should be her decision. But you shouldn't like force the woman out of the household. And basically now, if you're not a dual income family, you're struggling to survive.
Nothing. Yeah.
So I don't know. They fucked it up for everybody. And originally, again, children growing up, raising children, they need a stable home environment, stable family, stable parents. At least a mother there that's like, keeping an eye on shit. And if everybody thinks back to, how they grew up, it's your mom that probably had the biggest influence on how you matured as a moral person. You remove that person from the household. Now it's the school and it's the television raising your kids.
Or daycare or
both school is a government run thing. The television's like national media kind of thing and Hollywood generated, which is all leftist. All that shit comes from the same source. Nothing's going to change unless we start taking, again, hey, holy shit, I'm going to use that expression against personal responsibility.
Personal responsibility.
You're going to get a tattoo or a button that lights up a light or something like that. We need to take things back into our own hands here. Have the dialogue between just average people. Doesn't have to be on the media. If you know people that are different than you, talk about it. It's not going to be the end of the world. And let's stop being like, whoa, this is going to get closer to my final statement here because we are way out of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're 30 minutes over in our episode here.
At least.
And again, it would take another 90 minutes for us to freaking even get close to scratching the surface on the subject, and we do not want to sound dismissive about certain things. And
correct,
we have the utmost respect for everybody, and I think that's like that's the bottom line to all of this. It's like, why should we be treating anybody differently in the first place? There shouldn't be additional rights for a certain group of people. There shouldn't be less rights for a certain group of people.
Why, as a collective, are we letting others talk down and punch down to everyone?
Yeah, we're all sitting by watching when this stuff happens. When you see a targeted hit in the news and you see them take out a prominent businessman or a prominent actor, musician, any of that kind of stuff, this is a takedown right here. I mean, sending this guy into a mental institution, all that kind of stuff, you're taking one of the most famous singers of this certainly the decade, like this last decade or two or whatever. I can't even remember what Kanye. He's prolific, man. He's put out he's sold more albums and more tracks than
since we were in like middle school. It's like that's pretty
anybody
impressive.
else I can think of. He's up there, and yep, here we go. Nobody is safe. Even one of the biggest, highest selling musicians in the industry, if he doesn't have that same opinion as the liberal media, man, we got to get rid of his ass. And we never like kill anybody anymore. Like the Martin Luther Kings, JFKs. Those were good guys doing a real good thing. And at the time, they're just like, fuck it, it's easier to just whack this guy, get him out of there, get him to stop talking about all this stuff. He's making everybody come together and work together peacefully and all that. We can't have that in this country. Otherwise, we're not in control anymore. That's I'm sure what the problem was and what Lyndon Johnson was saying. Here's a famous man, super rich dude. starts thinking himself, starts making up his own mind on certain things, and all of a sudden the next thing you hear is him begging Jay-Z for money online. What the fuck happened to this guy's money? Like, all of a sudden it's like you start saying things that aren't towing the party line for the liberal agenda, you start losing business opportunities. Your shoe deal goes away. You're selling less records because the left is now no longer pushing you as like one of their premier artists or whatever. I mean, it's scary. This is like Germany shit. If you don't realize that the left right now is like the most fascist wing of the United States political system, you're sorely mistaken. And it's like
Laura
our job
Ingraham
to start pulling the wool off of people's eyes, because it's like, look at the effect. If you're being told what you can and cannot say, and then it becomes an actionable offense, and you can be sent to jail or fined for it, that's fucking fascism.
Well, think about that too. It's like Facebook.
If somebody's saying the N-word in a racist way, you call that guy an asshole and you just stop listening to him, but you certainly don't like... You don't throw an idiot in prison. I mean, that's an ignorant
Think about it from this perspective,
you
too.
certainly don't give them a voice either.
Think
Don't
about
give
it
them
from
a
this
fucking
perspective.
microphone on TV.
When Facebook started, for example, it was great, you know, and like we went over from MySpace, and everybody was having a good time, and then all of a sudden people started getting in trouble in school because it's like, hey, your teacher went on your Facebook page and they saw you drinking, so you're getting detention, or you might get expelled or something. Oh, we caught you doing drugs or something. You're getting expelled
right here.
Yeah, and then you fast forward to today, so what, like close to 15-ish years later, I want to say, something like that,
especially with the election.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden, if you say the wrong thing, you can be, you can lose your job. You can lose your stead in the community. You can
People
be labeled as a Nazi or a racist or a misogynist or all these demonized
Yeah,
terms.
look who's throwing all the labels too. Is that the conservatives doing that, or is that the left's demonizing anybody who disagrees with them?
That's the extremely tolerant
Guess what?
left.
We got a label for you if you disagree. You don't like climate change, or climate change denier. You don't like what was the deal? If you don't just like straight love Black Lives Matter, then you're a Nazi. If you're a
racist,
if you're a gun
Klansman,
conservative guy, or some kind of,
or a nationalist,
that's
white
the
nationalist.
Nazis, I guess, that like having guns or whatever. The Second Amendment fans. I don't know. It's just like, if you don't do whatever they're telling you to do, then they throw this moniker on you, and it's just like it's like being a leper in society. It's
and I'll tell you,
so
that's
fucked up.
That's why,
and that's creating the same problem as like creating a minority group in the first place. As like by putting a group and marginalizing an entire group of people just by the way they think, that's almost like marginalizing an entire group of people by the way that their skin color, or whatever.
Yeah. And that's why, like, I have a lot of like classic liberal tendencies, but I run as far and as fast as I can away from the left because of that kind of stuff. Because it's like, once, like, the left was doing a great job, and then they started cannibalizing themselves. It's like the leftist agenda, the leftist philosophy has completely gone psychotic. And until they can rein it in, and I hope the next election is a demonstration of that. I mean, who knows? This
is going to be probably one of the most interesting elections of all time, because you've never seen the left charged up like they are right now.
Yeah,
and they definitely have the microphone. They've got the media. They've got everything. And every show I turn on, it's John Oliver shitting on the president. It's,
Stephen Colbert has made his whole career out of just slamming Trump.
Over a year now, Colbert's had the Late Show, and every single episode, every
night.
Fucking word. I'm anti-Trump. It's like me as an artist.
Yeah.
It goes back to the fuck Bush. Like when I was a kid growing up, I was going to my favorite concerts and stuff. And I just remember it was like 8 years of fuck Bush or whatever. And I just realized it's like, man, that's one of my favorite musicians up there. If nothing else, it's just really lazy to say the same fucking shit for 8 years.
Well, and
if you don't like the guy's policies, how about you organize people yourself, start changing minds so that the next election, it's not an issue anymore. You kick that guy out and whatever. I mean, I think largely Obama was a result of that.
Not only that, but like Kanye, for example, like let's not forget, like, because people are just all of a sudden saying like, oh, Kanye's some like right conservative extremist guy or whatever. It's like Kanye was the same guy that said Bush doesn't care about black people during Katrina.
Yep.
So it's like, this is the same guy. He's not toting a party line. He's saying like, listen, there's right and there's wrong. There's what we can do about it, and here's what it is. And it just so happens to coincide more with the right than the left. But this is
in
just
this
like
instance,
in this particular instance.
But yeah,
he was a champion for the left.
He's evaluating situation by situation, and that's the way I think all of us should be thinking. It would be a lot more difficult to herd us all like cattle if we all thought independently, issue by issue, instead of being like, well, if you're a liberal, then you have to believe these 5 things, and if you're conservative, you have to believe these 5 things. I mean, if you get that fucking weird feeling in your stomach when you're sitting in a group of protesters or something like that, it's like, maybe they're forcing you to be a part of something you never wanted to be, and maybe all the people around you are thinking the same thing, but since they think everybody else is a part of it, then they're just like, well, fuck, I don't want to be the guy that's
Well,
left
not only
out,
that,
you know,
but
fuck
who's
that.
wearing the masks?
Yeah.
Who's
Well, not only
wearing
that,
the
look at the
masks?
protest footage. That was something I want to bring up. I can't remember if we had that in our other show or not, but like they brought up brought a camera and news people to what I think it was one of the most recent gun deals or whatever, protests against gun rights or whatever, and they bring it up to like these Antifa supporters or people like that or whatever, like really aggressive leftists, which is like, I thought the left was like hippies and people, or I mean, they're the ones with flamethrowers and throwing piss balloons and stuff. You do not see that coming from the Nazi. Yeah, you're not seeing that coming from the right, and I gotta say that for fact. But the funniest thing was when they brought cameras up to that like most recent protest, I saw the most crazy shit I've ever seen in a protest. They brought the cameras up, they put it out, they said, "Why are you guys here? What are you protesting?" They're like, "Get the fuck out of our face! Get that camera out of here!" And the news person's like, "You're protesting. You should be wanting a voice. The whole point is getting your voice heard. Why are we having these?" It's like, that sounds like a militant group of people that are like forcing people to change their mind,
but causing like public dissent.
You know, like, we don't want you filming this because we're probably going to be up to some shit that we don't need on TV, and it's all part of a bigger thing, and it's better. You know, like it's for the good of everybody if we punch 80-year-old men and shit like that. I don't know.
Not only that, but the RNC that they had in Minneapolis.
It's fucking militant at this point, and
like
I don't like that
elections
from anybody.
ago. Yeah, like 3 elections ago or whatever, we had the RNC in St. Paul, actually. But but the effects resonated into Minneapolis. I mean, you had a cop on every street corner, and all these
it was tense.
Leftist, most of them, in my opinion, are just straight degenerates. Because I mean, you're looking at these guys and they're wearing like ripped clothes and all this stuff. I mean, these guys are not trying to elevate themselves in society. They're just trying to mess stuff up. Yeah. And they're the ones throwing the balloons filled with piss and shit and stuff like that and breaking out windows and stuff. This is not to create a dialogue. This is to shut a dialogue down,
It seems like a forceful kind of takeover, almost like an occupying force.
And that's what the left does. The left just, they're
they do it by social pressure, and then in real life, or not real life, but like in the streets, like they do it by physical pressure.
But there wasn't like, you look at like the Tea Party or something, and I'm not saying I'm like pro Tea Party or anything, but those guys were all like standing on the steps of the Capitol, of the respective Capitol buildings and stuff. And they're like, hey, we're kind of tired of this. We'd really like some change or whatever. But they were just
our voice heard.
Respectfully, though, I mean, we filed for the permits and we're all holding like nice picket signs.
Yeah, exactly. That's why they're.
You compare that to the left, and it's like the left is just like these rabid animals, and then you have Antifa.
A lot of these guys out there have nothing to lose, and furthermore, you can find the fucking website in like 30 seconds with a Google search that you can get paid to be an aggressor as a lefty.
It's all this George Soros, like
Soros money shit.
Oh my god, yeah.
The other thing is like, if I were an African American person and I found out that a old crusty white guy was funding Black Lives Matter and like forcing this tension in the streets and all that stuff, I'd be like, fuck that.
Well, actually, an old Nazi that killed Jews. Let's not forget about that.
Oh, fuck yeah. This guy's like one of the most evil sons of bitches on the planet, and he's got plenty enough money to keep things all fucked up. And it's like his mission in life is just to keep stirring the pot, and whatever he's a part of that elite power structure that we need to get the
left
fuck out of
just
here.
Loves him.
Oh, yeah. He's a great guy for some reason.
Hail.
Jesus, God.
Hail, George.
This guy is absolutely like Satan incarnate, as close as I've ever seen it in reality. And like the fact that you know his name is fucking terrifying, because there's got to be 20 guys just like him or more powerful that you've never fucking heard of and never will hear of. I mean, the most fabulously wealthy people on the planet, we don't even know their names. I don't think the average person even knows their names. And yet we know football players and stuff like that. That guy is like a drop in the bucket with his $2 million a year salary or whatever, compared to this guy over here that's making $2 million a fucking minute or something.
It's like the Bilderberg meetings and
stuff.
Like
that pile of gold that the Rothschilds have. Like, it's like unbelievable. You're talking about
not all wealthy people want to be famous. That's a very important distinction, because you look at like the Bilderberg group.
You're putting a target on your back.
Look at the Bilderbergs, and they all show up in like blacked out limos and stuff like that. It's like these guys do not want to be known. They're doing things that they're not proud of. It's like, why do they make bulletproof Mercedes and stuff and like luxury vehicles and stuff?
Exactly.
It's not to protect nice, honest, well-meaning, well-intentioned people. No, it's to protect
when you
corrupted
get that
assholes that are
billions.
destroying huge countries and things like that.
Yeah,
and they're enjoying it too. They love it. That's why they're doing it.
You've had to do some nasty things to get to that point in your bank account where you're looking at billions of dollars or trillions of dollars, and bulletproof. That's unbelievable. Anyway,
let's wrap this up.
I don't know. We hope we haven't been offensive. again, the point here is about unity. I mean, we're so much stronger together than we are divided. I think that's a very simple, commonsensical way to wrap this up, and from my perspective here. And again, it comes down to personal responsibility, and let's judge individuals on what individuals do. If a guy's being a racist asshole, fuck him. But don't like make the mistake of thinking everybody is like that. Just like white people in this case shouldn't be making the generalizations about all black people or about all Hispanic or all Asian people. And guess what? Racism doesn't just happen between whites and blacks. It happens between Hispanics and blacks, or the Asian Americans and Hispanics and things like that. I mean, like, it's more complicated than this literal, like, this whole country is framed in black or white, left or right, red or blue, you know, like, it's like, no, we're adults. Let's start thinking like a little bit outside of this binary system that we're stuck in. Yeah. Because, yeah, if you want to be a little marionette on a string, it's just left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. I mean, it's like, it doesn't matter. That's two wings of the same bird or whatever other expression you want to use. Let's start thinking for ourselves. Let's start valuing our neighbor and like respectfully communicating. And the more we have these dialogues, the more we eliminate ignorance. And I gotta say, ignorance is probably the #1 offender here. It's what causes people that to hurt people that they don't understand because they seem different. You know, the more we know about other people, the less likely there is to be some kind of tension building, you know?
Yep. I'll tell you
respect.
I'll tell you a perfect example, and just to follow up what Chris is saying, you know, it's the more you learn about another person's culture, the more you just understand it. I mean, the more you accept it, the more it's rational to you. And a perfect example is, you know, when I moved down to Arizona, you know, we came from Minnesota, and everybody from Minnesota was like, hey, watch out, there's a lot of Mexicans down there, you know? Anyway, fast forward, like that was some sort of threat or something. I mean, and my part B to that, I'll get back to my main point.
Like, hey, there's a lot of scorpions down there. Someone's like, I haven't been stung by one yet, so what the fuck?
And my part B to that is like, and I tell pretty much everybody I meet in Arizona this, like the majority of the people I hate in Arizona are white people.
Yeah,
like,
no kidding.
The Mexicans have been wonderful to me, love them. One of my best friends down here, to prove once again Chris's point about, you know, just learning about other people's cultures and things and creating that dialogue. One of my best friends down here, Hispanic, his parents are from Mexico, he's from the US, but Thanksgiving was coming up, right? And I was like, oh, Thanksgiving, right? You guys, what are you guys making, like tamales and tacos and all that stuff? He's like, we're making a turkey and mashed potatoes and gravy, and you know, it's like so you know. But obviously, because I wasn't exposed, which is hilarious too, because my sister's Hispanic. But you know, the more because I didn't know anything about that culture, I was able to make these just like, you know, snap generalizations and stuff like that. So the point is, the more we talk, the more we're together on these things, the more difficult it makes the elites out there to demonize or to divide us based on these differences. You know, we have way more in common than we do differently. You know, we all grew up in the same country. We all, like, almost all these towns are identical. We all got the Walmart and the McDonald's and the, you know, it's like, come on, we're all living in the same stuff here. You know, it's like the only people that are creating a divide between us are the media, the elites, the people that want to see us fail, you know, the ones that want to see us fighting so that they can get away with their BS on top there, you know.
But we, the people, are playing just as much into it, man. We have to be just like this Candace. The reason she's important is because she's like standing up against all odds right now to speak one different opinion on the matter, you know. And it's like, until we have more courage and more people standing up speaking their mind, she might not be 100% correct. We just happen to like what she had to say this week. And it's not just this specifically, but she's had a lot of great points on a lot of different things. Because, again, I'm trying so hard not to be called racist at the end of this. This is, like, so not the intention of this episode.
I can already see, like, a swastika getting, like, posted on the, on the screen.
I'll just edit one right on both our faces just preemptively, so it's like, yep, got that out of the way. But, again, you know, let's start talking with people that we disagree with and not yelling at them and not shutting them up. You know, some of the most humbling times in my life was when I found out I was wrong about something. I was presented with better information about something I had a preconceived notion about. Guess what? That notion goes out the window. Because when you eliminate ignorance with knowledge, it's so much harder to go back and say that stupid ignorant thing again, because it's like, well, you fucking know that that's not the truth about those people or about that event or thing or whatever. It's just, you know, the more we group and the more we keep ourselves separate, the more that's going to never fucking happen. It makes it so difficult to start having real substantive conversations with people. And I think through that is where we're going to fix a lot of these problems, you know?
So, once again, we profusely apologize if we've offended anybody.
Let's preemptively apologize.
Yeah. Listen, we're all trying to figure this out together here, and the more we work on it, the better it's going to become. Anyway, we're starting to hit a lot of technical challenges, so we're going to wrap this up.
Our computer's like, shut the fuck up, guys.
It's like not even the government shutting us down; it's the freaking computer.
Mac.
But anyway, we really appreciate you guys tuning in. If you made it to the end of the episode, thank you so much.
It just shows you at least have an open enough mind to hear two idiots try to discuss something that maybe is way outside of our wheelhouse. I think it's important to talk about that.
We really appreciate your support on the NASA Fraudcast channel on both Space Erased and EFT. We hope that you'll tune in for the next episode. Please remember to like and subscribe to the page.
Yeah,
also clicking the bell if you'd like to hear all the notifications. If you just want to support us but you don't want to see every video, not a problem. Just make sure that bell's unclicked, and we'll definitely appreciate the subscription.
Yeah, I mean, like that's better than money when a channel's growing, man. Like it just the show support and subscriptions. That's how YouTube values a channel right now. YouTube is like the fucking. They are like the devil, man. They raised the threshold now for channels like us to make it harder for people like us to have to offer you an alternative opinion from time to time. God forbid you'd hear something that isn't the mainstream media. But yeah, YouTube has raised the threshold for monetizing channels. This used to be a monetized channel, which means I could do this for a living if I wanted to, and it gave me the option to do that. Now they've raised the bar. We have to have like fucking 5-10 times the content that we used to have, and we have to have a lot more viewership, a lot more support from you guys. If you like the NASA Fraudcast channel, now more than ever, it's important to like and subscribe, and
people always
with a friend.
People always say that on channels. They're like, oh, like and subscribe. We're talking about right now. Go ahead, click it. You made it all the way to the end.
Just do it.
Obviously, you want more content. It's right there. Go ahead and click that button.
If it doesn't let you log in with your Gmail account, then you should be able to subscribe to our channel. Yeah, if you guys have any other issues, hit us up in the comment section.
We really want to hear your comments on this, because obviously this is not just us talking. The whole point of the Fraudcast channel here is to create a dialogue.
Yes.
So we
got some of the best viewers because we actually have great dialogue in our comment sections. It's not just straight.
I would say sometimes the dialogue's better than the show itself.
Yeah.
You know, we try and do our best.
If you guys have a good point, we're gonna bring that shit into the next show. So.
And obviously, like if you guys are here, that means that you guys are looking for alternative media. We're trying to do our best job here. You guys need to keep us in check. So if you guys want to see something that we're not doing, or maybe represent an angle that we didn't represent, we can always bring it up in another.
Wrong? Let us know too.
We can always bring it up in another episode. So once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And until next time, this has been.
Let me cue you up here, buddy.
Everything's fucked. Great.
Let's launch it again, buddy. Man, I hope we didn't get ourselves into trouble.
Oh, God. That was, there's shows and there are shit shows.